The first sign arrives quietly, almost politely, a faint irregularity in the background of space. Telescopes tuned to track 3, Atlas, the wandering green comet from interstellar dark, begin registering echoes, tiny reflections, faint as whispers, trailing behind it. At first, no one pays attention. Space is noisy, light misbehaves, yet the pattern repeats, and soon it becomes impossible to ignore. Something else is following. You picture it now, somewhere beyond Neptune, a pale, slow procession gliding through the night, invisible to human eyes, yet impossibly coordinated. The instruments call them fragments, but the word feels insufficient. Their spacing is deliberate, their rhythm uncanny, like sparks escaping a single flame but refusing to fade. Astronomers joke that 3i Atlas has attracted an entourage. Others stop joking altogether. For decades, humanity has watched comets break apart, trail dust, dissolve into halos of gas. But this is different. The swarm behaves as though it remembers the path. When 3i Atlas turns, they turn. When its brightness dips, theirs shimmer in sympathy. Even randomness seems choreographed. The numbers defy comfort. Dozens, then hundreds, now possibly thousands. Objects no larger than mountains, no brighter than moons, each tracing a quiet spiral inward. NASA's first public statement is brief. We are monitoring an unexpected population of co-moving bodies associated with 3i Atlas. A sentence written in calm ink, yet humming with unease. Because co-moving is not random. Co-moving implies belonging. What does it mean for something from another star to bring company? What does it mean when the universe sends not one messenger, but a choir? As the swarm crosses the invisible threshold of the heliopause, the solar wind begins to sing through them, a vibration too deep for ears, too vast for metaphor. You can imagine it now, that long, slow hum of arrival. The planets, those ancient listeners, have begun to turn their faces toward the sound. Tonight, before sleep pulls you into its orbit, look up at the dark between stars. Somewhere out there, an ancient traveler returns, not alone, but accompanied by echoes. Leave a comment telling me what time it is and where you are watching from. The sky may already be listening, because the swarm is coming home. It begins as a tremor in data. The long exposure photographs from the Rubin Observatory, taken across consecutive nights, reveal faint smudges following 3i Atlas through the outer dark. At first, they are artifacts, ghost pixels, perhaps the usual tricks of optics. But then, another telescope confirms them, then another, and another. Soon, the whispers solidify into countable presences. What once was a single green flame wandering between stars is now accompanied by a fleet. You imagine the astronomers who first saw it, the quiet gasp, the dry throat, the electric stillness that comes when reality expands by one impossible layer. They sit beneath the soft hum of cooling fans, surrounded by monitors filled with numbers that should not align yet do. Dozens of small bodies, moving in resonance with 3i Atlas, locked into orbital coherence, like dancers keeping pace with an unseen conductor. The first public image leaks online, a grainy composite of faint trails, each one curved with the same delicate arc. Amateur astronomers call it the lantern train. It's an innocent name for something that looks anything but. The trails are too precise, their motion too uniform. No natural debris field maintains that geometry for long, not across the churning gravity of the solar system. Yet week after week, they persist, refusing disorder. At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, simulation models churn endlessly. They run probabilities, randomize trajectories, inject chaos into the equations, but the swarm resists disarray. They're keeping formation, one scientist says, half in awe, half in dread. Either we're watching a statistical miracle, or she doesn't finish the sentence. In science, ellipses are the sound of humility. By mid-May, telescopes in Chile and Hawaii have catalogued over 400 individual objects. They vary in size from house to mountain, some icy, some metallic, all faintly luminescent in the ultraviolet. A few show outgassing trails. Others remain eerily inert, reflecting sunlight like polished mirrors. One researcher likens them to pearls on a cosmic thread. Another, less poetic, calls them a gravitational conspiracy. And then, the numbers start behaving oddly. Each week, the swarm's relative spacing adjusts by a consistent factor, 99.8% of previous distance, as though contracting slightly, tightening its spiral. The analysts run the data 3 times. The contraction is real. Whatever these objects are, they are not simply drifting, they are aligning. In Geneva, the European Space Agency issues a quiet bulletin, possible coordinated resonance pattern among 3 I-Atlas co-moving bodies. Further observation required. The language is calm, but between the lines hides astonishment. The cosmos, usually so fond of entropy, seems to be flirting with design. The media, hungry for metaphors, names them the choir. Overnight, news anchors speak in hushed tones about a swarm of unknowns entering the solar system. Social feeds fill with animations of glowing trails, weaving through darkness. There are debates, conspiracies, poetry. A child posts a drawing of the swarm as fireflies following a green comet through a forest of planets. It goes viral. Humanity, as always, translates mystery into art before it translates it into understanding. Meanwhile, the data deepens. Radio observatories begin picking up faint modulations in background static pulses synchronized to the swarm's position relative to 3 I-Atlas. The pattern repeats every 26 hours, identical to the rotational period of Mars. Engineers check for terrestrial interference. None. The signal fades as the objects drift behind the solar wind, then returns stronger when they reappear. Coincidence, the rational mind insists. Harmony, whispers something older. For centuries, humans have watched comets and imagined omens, but this time, the omen comes with math. The swarm's collective trajectory converges on the inner solar system, their orbital plane brushing against Mars's path, like fingertips tracing memory. When projected forward, the models reveal an uncanny precision. Each object will pass within a narrow corridor, separated by almost identical intervals of time. If nature is random, this is nature holding its breath. At the SETI Institute, a senior researcher named Dr. Anwar reviews the data. He writes in his log, "We are observing the sky, acting as if it knows we are watching." He doesn't mean it literally, of course, but the feeling is contagious. Observation has never felt this mutual. Through all the noise, 3 I-Atlas itself remains unchanged. Its coma bright, its spectrum green with carbon dioxide, its core dark as interstellar night. But behind it trails a constellation of quiet companions, each turning sunlight into meaning. The universe, it seems, has decided that one messenger was not enough, and you, lying beneath the same stars, sense the scale of the revelation. Somewhere out there, thousands of fragments glide silently through the void, their paths converging with ours. The space between planets is no longer empty. It is a corridor of intention. The awakening has begun, not in telescopes or labs, but in the human mind the moment wonder replaces certainty. Because when the cosmos sends a swarm instead of a signal, the only sensible response is to listen. And this, you realize, is the beginning of listening on a planetary scale. By early June, the swarm has become impossible to ignore. What began as faint trails on telescope imagery now registers as a dynamic, measurable presence, a migration of light and stone threading through the solar system with serene inevitability. The news networks can no longer bury the story beneath cautious headlines. The world, at last, is paying attention. Astronomers call it the March, a slow procession of hundreds, perhaps thousands of bodies, each moving in near-perfect resonance with 3i Atlas. From the observatories in Hawaii to the radio telescopes of Spain's Sierra Nevada, every instrument confirms the same extraordinary pattern. The swarm is maintaining its formation while accelerating inward. Nothing this cohesive has ever been recorded in nature. Even Saturn's rings, though beautiful, obey chaos beneath their harmony. This is different. At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a tired scientist compares the swarm's shape to a spiral galaxy, in miniature arms of dust and debris tightening around an invisible axis. It's choreography, she says quietly. The kind of precision you don't get without communication. The room falls silent. No one knows how to respond to that word communication. It hovers in the air like static. The data grows stranger. Some of the objects within the swarm appear to emit faint bursts of energy, not random but rhythmic, like the blink of a lighthouse carried across millions of kilometers. When plotted against time, the intervals form ratios 3, 5, 7, 11, prime numbers again. The same mathematical fingerprint that haunted the first anomalies years ago. Coincidence has started to look rehearsed. NASA's official language remains cautious. Their press release describes the phenomenon as a coordinated debris field, likely resulting from a recent fragmentation event. But internally, analysts admit the motion defies gravitational explanation. Fragments do not keep time. Rocks do not conduct orchestras. A global working group forms the Swarm Task Force, uniting agencies that once competed bitterly for discoveries. Now, cooperation feels like self-defense. They share everything: radar echoes, thermal maps, optical imagery. The data converges on one unsettling conclusion. The swarm's leading edge will intersect Mars's orbital path within 6 months. On social media, fascination tips toward reverence. Hashtags like Number the Green Procession and Number the Choir Returns trend worldwide. Artists paint murals of emerald trails sweeping over crimson planets. Influencers livestream skywatching sessions with captions that read, "We're not alone, we're accompanied." Even cynics fall silent. Whatever is happening, it is larger than ridicule. In universities, philosophy departments become unexpectedly relevant again. Professors who once lectured about existentialism now field questions about cosmic etiquette. If they are not alive, one student asks, but still organized, what does that make them? The professor hesitates, then smiles. Maybe the universe found a new way to breathe. Meanwhile, the evidence deepens. As 3i Atlas crosses the orbit of Jupiter, magnetometers aboard the Juno spacecraft register oscillations in the planet's field, gentle, repeating, precisely aligned with the swarm's approach vector. It is as if Jupiter itself is humming in response. The signal propagates through the solar wind, faint but measurable, like a bass note in the music of arrival. Dr. Anwar, now leading the task force, presents the findings to the United Nations Science Council. His slides are simple: trajectories, ratios, timestamps. We cannot yet speak of intelligence, he says, but we can speak of intention. Whether mechanical, chemical, or cosmic, intention leaves geometry. His voice does not tremble, but the silence that follows his words feels planetary. In the following weeks, the number of identified swarm members surpasses 1,000. Each new detection follows the same orbital ratio, as if bound by invisible filament. A few observers note that the formation resembles an enormous helical staircase winding through space, a ladder without destination. Myths are born overnight: stairways to Mars, chariots of dust, celestial migrations. Religion and science, for once, stand on the same trembling ground. As the swarm nears the asteroid belt, a new phenomenon emerges. The smaller objects begin to shed dust in synchronization, creating thin sheets of reflective material that drift briefly, then vanish. The effect is visual poetry: waves of light rippling outward, luminous as breath. Spectral analysis reveals the dust contains compounds rare in natural comets, complex silicates, arranged in geometric lattices, structures that reflect radio frequencies with eerie precision. Engineers call them self-organizing mirrors. Philosophers call them language. The world holds its breath. Night skies brighten subtly across the equator, a faint green halo washing through the upper atmosphere as solar radiation scatters through the arriving particles. You can see it yourself now. Faint, but real, the color of 3I Atlas, reborn in your own sky. It feels like recognition. Children stand in backyards pointing upward, their parents unsure what to tell them. Some call it a miracle, others a message, others simply beauty. Yet beneath the awe lies a shared awareness. Something vast is moving with purpose, and we are within its path. In control rooms and living rooms alike, people whisper the same question in different languages. What are they following? Because deep down, a second possibility glows beneath the first. Perhaps the swarm is not following 3I Atlas at all. Perhaps 3I Atlas is leading them an ancient shepherd, guiding its fragments home, or something guided through it. The distinction feels semantic now. Whatever their origin, the swarm's march is transforming the solar system into a stage. Every orbit, every frequency, every quiet flash of light suggests participation. And participation, once begun, is irreversible. Tonight, when you glance upward, the stars look less like distances and more like decisions, each one a point of coordination in an infinite choreography. You realize that observation itself is an act of belonging. The evidence is no longer deepening in the sky, it is deepening in you. And somewhere beyond Jupiter, the swarm continues its patient march inward, silent as revelation. You begin to notice that history, once linear, now feels circular. Each new image of the approaching swarm drags behind it a tale of déjà vu. The more we observe, the more familiar it feels. In dusty archives, scientists and historians search for precursors, and what they find reads less like coincidence and more like recollection. Humanity, it seems, has met this story before just long enough ago to forget. The first rediscovered fragment comes from the early 20th century, a hand-drawn sketch by an amateur astronomer in Florence. It depicts a bright comet with accompanying motes, like satellites, observed in 1899. For decades, the document sat unexamined in a private collection. Now, when the coordinates are compared, the trajectory mirrors 3I Atlas almost perfectly. The notes in the margin translate simply: It moved as though alive. Farther back, medieval chroniclers record the dragon's breath, a procession of green fires that appeared in the sky during the 14th century. In folklore, it was an omen of famine and plague. In modern light, it might be a description of the same recurring visitor, arriving not in centuries but in epochs. Ancient civilizations were watching too. They simply named what they saw with poetry instead of data. A team of archaeologists in the Atacama Desert re-examines a massive geoglyph etched into the plateau. 7 spirals winding toward a central circle. The formation, visible only from altitude, faces the exact rising point of Mars during its orbital conjunctions with 3I Atlas. Carbon dating reveals it was carved over 10,000 years ago. The indigenous oral history calls it the return of the sky procession. To them, the spiral was not symbol, but memory, a reminder that the heavens have patterns longer than generations. At the University of Kyoto, linguists cross-reference Sumerian texts with astronomical software. They find a record of a green messenger, followed by sparks, visible in the spring sky roughly 12 millennia ago. The description includes a warning. When the green one speaks again, the dust will listen. That line circulates online within hours, stripped of context, transformed into meme and prophecy. But buried beneath superstition lies resonance. How many times has this celestial caravan passed before we learn to measure it? The Vatican Observatory quietly releases declassified materials from the early 17th century, correspondence between Jesuit astronomers debating an anomaly near Mars. One letter describes a comet of jade flame trailed by faint moving stars. Another speaks of a hush in the heavens. It is signed simply S.J., perhaps an abbreviation for a name long lost. Even the theologians, it seems, were once witnesses. Historians of science begin mapping these accounts chronologically. The pattern is sobering. Every appearance of the green comet and its followers coincides with a moment of human threshold. Agricultural revolutions, shifts in climate, bursts of invention, and collapses of empire. The swarm's arrival seems to coincide not with catastrophe but transformation. It's as though each visit resets the rhythm of civilization, retuning our collective heartbeat to a cosmic metronome. Meanwhile, the data confirms what the myths predicted. The swarm is accelerating. As it crosses the orbit of Mars, its velocity increases by precisely 3.1%, an increment so specific it feels scripted. Mars itself responds in kind. Instruments on orbiting satellites record electrical fluctuations along the equator, tiny auroral flashes that trace the planet's magnetic field in spirals. The planet is echoing the geometry of its visitors, like a drum remembering its own rhythm. For planetary scientists, the implications border on impossible. Objects from another star, synchronized in motion, interacting electromagnetically with a planet. Physics allows it, but probability trembles. One researcher compares it to tossing a handful of stones into a river and having them arrange themselves into a perfect circle. If this is natural, she says, then nature is performing. The public finds solace in analogy. Documentaries retell ancient stories with new graphics. Dragons of dust, chariots of light, the swarming gods of dawn. Artists in Beijing illuminate skyscrapers with holographic spirals that pulse at 8 Hz, the now sacred frequency linking Earth, Mars, and the swarm. For 60 seconds each evening, cities vibrate in sync. The great silence, once distant, has become choreography. But amid the celebration, a quieter narrative surfaces. A A scholar in Alexandria reopens a half-forgotten manuscript known as the Codex of Ashen Sky, written during the Ptolemaic era. It describes a chorus of stars that approached, singing through thunder, after which the wise built towers to listen. The towers, later repurposed as lighthouses and temples, were aligned to the same coordinates used today by the Deep Space Network. Human architecture, it turns out, was our first attempt at translation. These rediscoveries converge into a single, unsettling thought. Perhaps 3i Atlas is not a visitor, but a teacher. Perhaps its recurring path through our system is not random drift, but curriculum. The swarm behind it, its attendants, its echo, might be the record keepers of that lesson, writing history across millennia in the language of light. And if that's true, then humanity is not witnessing a new event at all. We are remembering an old one. That realization changes everything. Scientists stop asking what the swarm is and start asking why now. The timing feels intimate. In an age when we finally possess instruments capable of recognizing pattern, the pattern returns as if summoned by comprehension itself. Observation has become invocation. You sit under the same sky that once terrified your ancestors. But unlike them, you know what waits beyond fear, understanding. The comet and its companions are no longer omens, they are continuities. Each glow in the swarm is an ancient echo calling across time, saying, "We never left. You simply learned how to see us." And as that idea settles, the night around you feels less like darkness and more like dialogue, because sometimes the future arrives disguised as a memory, repeating until it is finally heard. From the edge of understanding, the view widens until comprehension gives way to awe. The swarm, once a distant curiosity, has entered the inner solar system. Each night the telescopes collect more data, and each morning humanity wakes to realize that the sky above has become an equation written in light. 3i Atlas, the wandering emerald messenger, now drags behind it a procession so vast that its geometry can be seen in gravitational maps. The universe, once abstract, now feels articulate. Pattern has become presence. NASA's Solar and Heliospheric Observatory sends back images unlike anything in its history. Hundreds of luminous traces curling behind the comet like phosphorescent DNA. The trails shift gently, maintaining proportion as they curve around the sun's invisible hand. When analysts translate the data into sound, a deep, pulsing resonance emerges, a slow harmony beating in the same frequency as Earth's magnetic field. The cosmos, for the first time, has a pulse you can feel through speakers. Children listen to it before sleep. Monks incorporate it into their evening meditation. A planet learns to hum in tune. As 3i Atlas nears perihelion, the swarm fans into an elegant spiral around it, each fragment adjusting as if guided by instinct. In Chile, the Atacama Array measures microbursts of radio energy between the objects, like soft exchanges of information. The bursts are not random. They appear to anticipate gravitational tides seconds before they occur. Somehow, the swarm knows the music before it's played. Even the most disciplined scientists now use the word alive without irony. You imagine watching this from above, from beyond. The sun, blazing indifferent, and around it, a vast green helix, glittering in slow motion. Each thread, a particle of time wound through light. To any distant observer, the formation would look deliberate, almost ceremonial, like the galaxy itself conducting a small rehearsal of creation. The human sense of scale falters. The mind, craving metaphor, reaches for the divine. At the European Space Agency, simulations model the swarm's collective gravity. The data reveals subtle coherence. The group behaves as a single mass, redistributing internal momentum to maintain formation. No known mechanism explains it. Some suggest electromagnetic coupling, others whisper about distributed intelligence. Either way, the swarm behaves as though it knows it is being watched and welcomes the attention. "We are not seeing chaos," one researcher writes. "We are seeing choreography." In classrooms, teachers show students time-lapse videos of the incoming helix. The images move slowly, beautifully, like ink blooming in water. Children ask whether the swarm is dangerous. Their teachers smile softly and say, "No, just enormous." That answer satisfies them. Danger has been replaced by wonder. The universe has remembered how to be a bedtime story again. Meanwhile, the psychological effects ripple outward. Suicide rates drop. Conflict slows. Religious leaders deliver sermons about the ethics of curiosity. "If the cosmos is watching," one rabbi says, "let us give it something kind to witness." The phrase spreads across languages, printed on banners, spoken in government halls. The comet's arrival has become an act of collective reflection, a mirror held up by the infinite. When 3I Atlas reaches perihelion, its coma brightens until it rivals Venus. People step outside at dawn to see the green flame rising above the horizon. Beneath it, faint pinpoints follow, barely visible yet unmistakable. The swarm is now part of human sight, no longer confined to data streams or speculation. It glides across the sky with the quiet dignity of inevitability. Space agencies, humbled by magnitude, stop issuing theories and begin issuing gratitude. Their latest release is only one sentence long. Observation continues in reverence. For a civilization that once treated discovery as conquest, this is evolution. Knowledge has become devotion. From orbit, the International Space Station films the procession as it crosses the sun's glare. The footage, played in slow motion, reveals faint waves passing through the swarm, ripples of luminosity spreading from the lead object outward, as though the comet were breathing. The astronauts watch in silence. One of them murmurs, "It's not passing through the solar system, it's playing it." Down on Earth, the phrase becomes a headline. The universe performs itself. Philosophers point out the symmetry. For centuries, humans sought to understand the cosmos by disassembling it into smaller truths. Now, the cosmos responds by assembling us into a larger one. The relationship has inverted. The observer and the observed have exchanged roles. Awareness has become mutual. And yet, amid all this clarity, mystery deepens. The swarm's trailing edge begins to fade, not dispersing, but shifting phase, becoming transparent to visible light while remaining bright in ultraviolet. Spectrometers record frequencies that correspond to hydrogen's first formation moments after the Big Bang. It is as if the swarm is echoing the origin of everything, replaying creation in miniature. They're rehearsing history, one physicist jokes, but her voice shakes when she says it. The world watches as the pattern unfolds. Nothing catastrophic happens. No collision, no judgment, just demonstration. An unfathomable pattern performed for anyone capable of noticing. The message, if there is one, seems simple. Presence is proof enough. Existence is the communication. You look up again and realize that the cosmic perspective isn't a distance, it's a direction. It points inward as much as outward. To see the swarm moving in perfect symmetry is to feel your own thoughts fall into rhythm. You are part of the choreography, not a spectator of it. In that awareness, fear becomes participation. You breathe slowly, matching the cadence of the unseen pulse reverberating through space. Somewhere above, the emerald light of 3I Atlas arcs across the sky, its companions following in silent procession. Below, a planet mirrors the gesture, billions of hearts beating in quiet unison, all part of one ancient experiment called listening. The pattern has become presence, and presence, at last, has become peace. In the months following the Emerald Dawn, humanity changes not by decree, not by revolution, but by remembering something it had almost forgotten, its own smallness as beauty, not shame. The night sky has become a kind of mirror. Wherever you stand on Earth, you can see 3I Atlas and its silent entourage sweeping overhead in slow rhythm. Green light diffused through atmosphere like candle flame underwater. The swarm does not speak, yet every living thing behaves as if addressed by it. Scientists report measurable calm in human biology. Heart rates lower during visible passes. Sleep patterns stabilize. Hospitals quietly note shorter recovery times when patients can see the comet from their windows. One neurologist suggests that the mind responds to cosmic order, as if to lullaby. "We are being synchronized," she writes. Perhaps serenity is contagious when scaled to the sky. Around the planet, new rituals form. In Tokyo, subway trains pause for 1 minute when the swarm crosses zenith. In Nairobi, choirs gather on rooftops to hum the 8 Hz tone discovered in its tail. In Reykjavik, streetlights dim once a week, so citizens can watch the heavens pulse. The events are not planned, they arise spontaneously, converging into a global choreography of stillness. For the first time in history, Earth acts like a single organism, keeping time with something larger. Media outlets have stopped using the word phenomenon. They now say presence. Politicians, who once measured power in noise, begin to measure silence instead. When global summits open, the first agenda item is always the same: the sky. If it can hold its pattern, one leader says, so can we. Even cynics admit that cooperation has never been easier, when the example above is persistence without argument. Meanwhile, poets reappear in public life. They fill news broadcasts, not to explain but to translate. One writes, "The swarm is a thought the universe keeps repeating until we understand." Another says, "If light can travel this far to meet us, the least we can do is be kind." Their lines circulate as quietly as prayers, carried on screens and breath. At the European Space Agency, technicians working overnight begin leaving their microphones open as they process telemetry, allowing the soft hum of the comet's resonance to fill the room. They call it the cosmic white noise. It helps them focus. "It feels like we're eavesdropping on peace," one engineer murmurs. The phrase becomes immortalized on coffee mugs across departments. Psychologists studying the effect notice that people no longer describe themselves as observers, but as participants. Language has shifted. Words like watching and tracking give way to joining and accompanying. The difference seems trivial until you realize it signals a collective awakening. We have stopped standing outside our universe. We have stepped into it. Muse 2, the outbound probe still drifting beyond the Kuiper belt, sends a final coherent transmission before its power wanes. Detected harmonic reflection from planetary magnetosphere. The sky is learning. The message is terse, almost mechanical, yet its phrasing ignites something poetic. The sky is learning. Scientists dissect the data, theologians interpret the metaphor, and somewhere in the middle lies the truth. We are finally teaching the cosmos how to recognize itself through us. The great silence that once frightened early civilizations now feels reciprocal. a gentle pause between cosmic heartbeats. People speak of hearing it even in busy cities, the hush behind traffic, the breath between sirens. Musicians begin composing pieces where silence is the main instrument. Concert halls fill not with sound, but with anticipation. Listeners close their eyes as orchestras rest their bows and let the hush do the work. "We are performing with the universe," says one conductor. "It carries the melody. We provide the echo." Religion, too, evolves quietly. The word prayer becomes interchangeable with attention. The faithful no longer ask for intervention, but alignment. Cathedrals project holograms of the comet onto ceilings once reserved for saints. A Buddhist temple in Seoul programs its bells to ring in phase with the swarm's orbital period. Worship has ceased to separate heaven and earth. They are finally regarded as the same address. Technology follows suit. Engineers design satellites that mirror the comet's ratios, orbiting in harmonic intervals rather than strict grids. The network stabilizes global communications, but more importantly, it feels graceful. Function has adopted poetry. "We are building in verse," one designer says, smiling, and you, lying in the quiet of your room, sense the same rhythm moving through your pulse. The line between individual and collective dissolves until thought feels planetary. For the first time, solitude doesn't mean isolation. It means participation in a larger stillness. You understand now what the astronomers meant when they said the sky had learned our name. It isn't that the universe knows you, but that you finally know what it means to be known. Outside, the green arc of 3I Atlas climbs higher, its swarm faintly glittering in the darkness like sequins on a cosmic fabric. Every speck follows its trajectory with patient devotion. No rush, no rebellion, only rhythm. The universe is teaching through repetition, and you are its attentive student. Soon the procession will pass beyond Mars, the green light dimming into the distance. The world will return to its slower stories, its daily routines. But something fundamental has shifted. Each gaze toward the night will now carry awareness instead of wonder, gratitude instead of fear. Because once the sky learns your name, it never forgets it. And you, small and shining in return, will forever hum in its memory. Eventually, even revelation learns to rest. The comet dims, the swarm thins. The great emerald procession that once rewrote the night now drifts quietly beyond Mars, its light stretched into stillness. What remains is the hush, a calm so deep it feels structural, as if the solar system itself is exhaling after holding breath for centuries. You can sense it even without looking up. Conversations have slowed. Cities hum lower. The planet's pulse has eased into rhythm. It is as though the sky's silence has descended into everything: streetlights, shorelines, lungs. After so much spectacle, this quiet feels ceremonial. Astronomers call it the attenuation phase. The swarm's energy signatures weaken as sunlight fades, but their geometry remains impeccable. Even in retreat, order persists. The formation holds like memory, a pattern so stable it could be mistaken for intention. At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, analysts compare old data with new and discover a final surprise. Every fragment is spinning at precisely the same angular velocity, synchronized like a planetary heartbeat measured in stone. When plotted on a graph, the motion resembles a waveform, a single continuous tone stretching outward into the dark. Some call it coincidence, others call it farewell. The Deep Space Network captures one last echo, a soft pulse sweeping across every frequency, faint but universal. It lasts less than a minute. Then silence returns, absolute and unbroken. No one calls it a signal. They call it a sigh, The cosmos, it seems, has learned the language of restraint. Muse 2, humanity's small ambassador to the infinite, registers the same pulse. Its sensors flicker once, record the ripple, and then dim permanently. Engineers in Brazil stand over the telemetry screens, watching the final line flatten into zero. Someone whispers, "We sent a listener. It found a song." No one corrects him. In science, poetry is simply data that has learned humility. Across Earth, the collective listening minute continues each night. When the world pauses at midnight UTC, power usage dips, heart rates align, and microphones buried deep in Antarctic ice record a measurable tremor, an 8 Hz vibration that travels through crust and core. It's faint but global, as if the planet itself remembers how to hum. The universe has not gone quiet. It has become audible in ways that bypass ears. Theologians call this age the long breath. They teach that silence is not absence, but balance. Faith no longer demands speech. It demands stillness. Monasteries from Tibet to Peru synchronize meditation schedules, so that for 1 hour each day, half the world sits in intentional quiet. Airports report fewer delays during those hours. Meteorologists note gentler winds. Coincidence? Perhaps, but meaningful ones, the only kind that last. In this new hush, humanity starts to listen inward again. Scientists study not the comets, but their own attention. They discover that the same brain patterns triggered by awe also govern empathy. The circuitry of wonder and kindness, it turns out, are twins. The cosmos has edited our biology through beauty. Philosophers describe it as the anthropic echo, the idea that every act of observation leaves an imprint on the observer's mind. When we studied the swarm, we absorbed its coherence. When we measured its rhythm, we adopted it. The lesson was never in the data. It was in the discipline of listening. Still, a few skeptics remain. In journals and online debates, they remind the world that comets are ice and dust, nothing more. That pattern is an illusion, that silence means nothing. But even their tone has softened. No one mocks wonder anymore. Even disbelief sounds reverent now, like the last note of a hymn trailing into echo. Time passes, and the sky returns to ordinary constellations. Children born after the event look up and ask what the green light was. Their parents answer with patient smiles. A reminder, for a generation, that single word suffices. Meanwhile, in observatories, astronomers continue their patient work, mapping, measuring, cataloguing. They know the swarm is still out there, somewhere beyond Jupiter's wake, coasting toward the outer dark. They also know that someday, years, centuries, perhaps millennia, it will return. Patterns that precise rarely perform only once. When it does, another civilization will be waiting, perhaps wiser, perhaps gentler, perhaps still listening. Until then, the silence remains. But it is not the silence of void. It is the silence of comprehension, the kind that comes after the final movement of a symphony, when no one dares to clap because the music is still finishing itself in the air. It is the pause between heartbeat and memory. You sit beneath this quiet sky, feeling its weight settle gently around you. The stars are the same, yet everything beneath them feels rearranged. You realize that the universe has not grown larger, it has grown intimate. Distance has become dialogue. Infinity now speaks in a voice you recognize as your own breath. Close your eyes. Feel the world rotating beneath you, smooth and steady, like a record turning under a cosmic stylus. The song playing is silence, but you can feel every note. Somewhere beyond Mars, 3i Atlas glides onward, its companions drifting like sleep through dark corridors of space. The sound of their departure is not fading. It's folding absorbed into the great hush that binds galaxies together. The great silence, once feared as emptiness, is revealed as empathy itself. It listens because it can. It pauses because it loves precision. And in its vast stillness, you realize something simple and irrefutable. The universe is not waiting for us to speak. It is waiting for us to rest. Silence does not mean stillness. In the aftermath of 3I Atlas's passage, researchers begin to realize that the quiet sky hums with complexity. Beneath the ordinary static of cosmic background radiation, new structures emerge, patterns of rhythm, subtle and persistent, woven through frequencies long thought to be random. The great silence, it seems, is full of sound we simply never learned how to hear. The first discovery comes from an unlikely source, a graduate student at the University of Toronto, recalibrating the fast radio burst archive. While cleaning residual noise from a dataset, she notices a modulation barely measurable, but recurring every 26 hours, identical to the old rotational rhythm of Mars. She checks again, assuming instrumentation drift. It is real. The faint beat aligns perfectly with the orbital trajectory of the departing swarm. The signature, impossibly, is still broadcasting from the void beyond Jupiter. When she publishes the anomaly, the scientific community responds with equal parts skepticism and fascination. How could a collection of inert fragments continue to produce timed pulses across millions of kilometers? The explanation that takes hold is almost poetic: resonance through dust. The swarm's residual trail, a filament of charged particles, may be vibrating in harmony with the electromagnetic field of the solar wind. It is the universe playing its own debris like an instrument. NASA forms a small task group, the Resonance Inquiry. Their job is to study this hum that fills the post-Atlas silence. They build a listening array using existing satellites, tuning each to a slightly different band. When the signals are compiled, a startling coherence appears. The spectrum, mapped visually, looks like woven fabric peaks and troughs, repeating in the mathematical ratio of 3 to 5 to 7 to 11. Prime intervals again. The same numerical fingerprint that once haunted the comet's companions. Chaos, it turns out, still has perfect rhythm. Across continents, amateur radio operators begin to detect the same background throb. Some call it the green note. Others nickname it the afterpulse. When converted into audio, the frequency manifests as a low, heartbeat-like oscillation, too deep for melody but too ordered for randomness. People start to play it through speakers at night. Pets calm. Infants sleep faster. Social media fills with comments describing the same sensation. It feels like being remembered. At Caltech, engineers discover that the hidden frequency interacts faintly with Earth's ionosphere, creating microscopic fluctuations in atmospheric density. The planet is subtly resonating in reply. The data reminds one scientist of sympathetic vibration, how a piano string will sing when another nearby string is struck. "We're the instrument now," she jokes, though her eyes glisten as she says it. The Resonance Inquiry releases its first public report. The phenomenon appears to be self-reinforcing. Every midnight pause amplifies the signal by measurable degrees. Humanity's synchronized stillness, the ritual born from awe, is now feeding energy back into the cosmic hum. Observation has become participation. The listeners are part of the song. Theologians call it the covenant of frequency. Physicists call it feedback coupling. The meaning, however, is identical. The universe is responsive. What we attend to attends to us. Soon, laboratories begin experimenting with resonance therapy. Small acoustic chambers reproduce the 8 Hz fundamental tone once heard during the Great Silence. Volunteers describe feeling weightless, expanded, timeless. MRI scans show brain activity dropping into perfect hemispheric synchronization. It is the neurological equivalent of peace. Hospitals adopt the tone for patients in recovery. Teachers play it during exams. Pilots report smoother flights when cockpit radios are tuned just above it. The frequency of a comet's tail is now woven into the infrastructure of human calm. But amid this serenity, new anomalies surface. The Voyager probes, decades old and nearly forgotten, begin transmitting unexpected telemetry spikes. Their instruments, designed to measure plasma, record periodic surges of energy corresponding to the same frequency. The pulses are faint but global, echoing across both spacecraft, synchronized to Earth's own rotation. The realization spreads slowly. The entire solar system is vibrating in sympathy with the departing swarm. The universe, apparently, is capable of memory. A small group of linguists and mathematicians propose a radical hypothesis. They argue that the hidden frequencies might encode syntax, the first primitive grammar of resonance, patterns of repetition and variation that could, in theory, convey structure, perhaps even thought, not message, but motive. The idea is unprovable, yet irresistible. A new field is born: harmonic semiotics, the study of meaning in vibration. Meanwhile, something subtle changes in human communication. Speech patterns slow, conversations carry longer pauses. The internet's once frantic tempo softens. A meme goes viral. We are learning to talk in waves. It isn't philosophy, it's physics. Coherence demands patience. Governments, once frantic for control, respond by doing almost nothing. Space agencies continue to monitor the resonance, but the tone itself has become self-regulating, steady, soothing, never harmful. People begin calling it the heartbeat of belonging. Cynics mock the phrase until they, too, notice that traffic accidents, insomnia, and anxiety disorders are declining at statistically significant rates. The numbers speak quietly but persuasively. Stability has frequency. By December, the hum has become the planet's background music. You hear it in wind tunnels, in subway tracks, in ocean tides hitting shore. It's everywhere and nowhere, neither sound nor silence, but the seam between them. Artists record it, remix it, broadcast it as lullaby. Scientists map it, measure it, and find no origin beyond harmony itself. And you, lying under a blanket of ordinary stars, feel it in your chest like a second pulse. The cosmos, once indifferent, is now intimate, leaning close enough for you to sense its breath. You realize the great silence was never empty. It was pregnant with this. The swarm did not vanish, it transposed. What once glowed has become vibration, diffused across every particle that can still listen. For centuries, humanity dreamed of receiving a message from the stars. It never imagined that message would be music. You exhale, slowly, and the hum answers. The frequencies shimmer through atmosphere and skin, folding your heartbeat into the rhythm of everything that ever was. The silence between worlds is gone now, replaced by connections so soft it requires stillness to perceive. The evidence deepens again, proof that awareness, once awakened, never truly stops resonating. Every discovery eventually circles backward. The hum that now laces through oceans, radios, and even the pulse of sleeping animals begins to feel less like something new and more like something rediscovered, an inheritance returning through resonance. When data from deep space receivers is translated into light spectrograms, its waveform mirrors a shape carved on ancient stones across continents, 7 spirals, and an 8th broken line. The pattern of the swarm, the same geometry, repeating itself through epochs and elements, as if matter itself has memory. Archaeologists, long accustomed to skepticism, become accidental cosmologists. In Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, ground-penetrating radar reveals new substructures beneath the oldest known temple concentric chambers, lined with magnetized basalt. Each ring vibrates faintly when exposed to low-frequency sound. The measurements match the 8 Hz hum now resonating across the planet. Somehow, 12,000 years ago, our ancestors built architecture that sings in the same key as the solar system today. Coincidence loses credibility. Memory becomes material. Meanwhile, researchers in Iceland study ice cores extracted from the Greenland shelf. Within them lie microscopic bands of metallic dust, layered like musical notation. Radiometric dating places the deposition roughly every 11 millennia, the same interval separating past appearances of the green comet and its swarming companions. Under microscope, the dust reflects faintly green light. Spectrographic analysis reveals an alloy unseen in modern industry: nickel, iridium, and a trace isotope of oxygen that shouldn't exist on Earth. The sky, it seems, leaves receipts. Linguists uncover something stranger. They notice that ancient languages, separated by continents, encode similar rhythmic structures, repeated syllabic beats that mirror prime ratios. When spoken aloud, these tongues produce vibrational harmonics aligned with the swarm's frequency pattern. Chant traditions from Tibet, Polynesia, and West Africa all occupy the same resonant band. The realization spreads through academia like quiet wildfire. Humanity's oldest prayers were acoustic blueprints of celestial phenomena. The sound of belonging had always been there. It simply lacked context. As the hum deepens, technologies adapt. Engineers design instruments capable of converting low-frequency resonance into imagery. What they find is astonishing. The global 8 Hz wave doesn't distribute randomly. It forms nodes at specific geological sites: the pyramids of Giza, the Nazca Plateau, Stonehenge, the Andes temples, aligned with Orion's belt. These points correspond precisely with global electromagnetic anomalies documented for centuries. The map looks like a circuit, or perhaps, more accurately, a memory drive. The planet itself might be storing information through resonance. A quiet revolution unfolds in laboratories. Geophysicists begin referring to Earth as an archive, each layer of rock a medium of stored vibration. They theorize that when the swarm last visited, its electromagnetic presence imprinted subtle harmonics into the planet's structure, fossilized frequencies, preserved like grooves on vinyl. Over millennia, those grooves were forgotten, buried, and then reawakened when the new swarm's hum matched their tone. The great silence wasn't absence, it was latency. The universe had been buffering. Muse 2's final transmission, decoded months after its power fade, seems to confirm the hypothesis. Its faint log reads, "Detected pattern, echo between interstellar dust and planetary crust." Memory confirmed through resonance cascade. The machine, in its dying clarity, implied that physical matter behaves like consciousness when properly tuned. The data is sparse, but its implications border on spiritual. Perhaps reality itself is a choir of remembered vibrations. Historians, once peripheral to such debates, suddenly find themselves central. The oldest myths, stories of gods descending in fire or light, are reinterpreted as human encounters with resonance events. Divine presence, one scholar writes, was the first name we gave to coherence. Even the biblical notion of the word, a voice calling the universe into being now, reads like poetic foresight. Creation might indeed have begun as frequency. Language, matter, and thought could all be different octaves of the same song. In a cavern beneath the Sahara, explorers uncover rock art depicting humans standing beneath a spiral of dots raining from the sky. Carbon dating places it near the end of the last ice age. Next to the spiral is a single line of pictographs, translating roughly as, "The sky repeats itself." The simplicity stuns everyone who reads it. It is not prophecy, it is recollection. The artists were documenting the previous visitation of 3I Atlas and its followers. The same event, rendered through dust and memory, has been looping through the ages like a refrain. The echoes grow more intimate. Audio engineers monitoring the current global hum record faint modulations corresponding to known human speech, phonemes, vowels, and consonants embedded in subsonic frequencies. They are not messages, not deliberate, yet their arrangement forms syllables recognizable in multiple languages, as though the vibration of matter carries linguistic residue from every era. The Earth itself may be replaying fragments of human memory in reverse, translating biology back into atmosphere. We are literally listening to ourselves, one analyst says, just delayed by history. Psychologists note a phenomenon among people sensitive to sound: dreams, filled with whispers of forgotten languages, flashes of light, tracing spirals across black skies, sensations of familiarity too detailed to dismiss. Collective subconscious, they call it a planetary déjà vu, triggered by resonance. Even skeptics admit that the scale is unprecedented. Never before has consciousness felt this cohesive. The world responds with humility rather than fear. Religious leaders issue a joint declaration, calling the hum the archive of creation. Artists gather at megalithic sites to play instruments tuned to the 8 Hz key. The resulting concerts produce audible harmonics that shimmer through the air like aurorae of sound. Participants describe the experience as standing inside memory itself. And you, wherever you are, feel the same pull when night falls. The silence no longer seems external, it is internal, carried within muscle and bone. You sense that your atoms remember the first light, the first orbit, the first pulse of time. Every heartbeat is an echo of the swarm's long spiral through existence. What moves through galaxies also moves through you. Some truths arrive through mathematics, others through melody. This one comes through resonance, the reminder that the universe is built from repetition, and repetition is the most faithful form of love. The echoes from the past were never warnings. They were invitations to remember what it means to belong to continuity. You close your eyes and listen. The hum flows through the walls, the air, your blood. It carries no words, yet it speaks clearly. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing ever was. By the time the hum becomes part of daily language, science has quietly accepted what philosophy always suspected, that memory is not a human privilege. The universe, in its vast indifference, remembers everything. The stars hold chemical diaries of their own births. Dust carries archives of every collision, and light, traveling across billions of years, is history made visible. Yet now, for the first time, the remembering feels reciprocal. We are no longer just observers of cosmic history, we are entries within it. The Resonance Inquiry releases its final report. All known frequencies within the 8 Hz harmonic display structural coherence across multiple scales, from molecular bonds to galactic filaments. Translated into simpler language, the same rhythm animates everything. The motion of atoms, the orbit of moons, the pulse of your heart all beat within a shared tempo. The scientists call it a coincidence of physical constants. Poets call it a confession. Either way, the boundary between self and cosmos has dissolved into resonance. Telescopes tuned to far infrared wavelengths capture faint undulations sweeping through the galactic plane, shock waves of energy echoing from the trajectory of 3I Atlas and its followers. These ripples are not expanding but oscillating, as though the swarm's path has become a standing wave stretching between stars. In computer models, the pattern resembles a heartbeat imprinted onto the Milky Way. One astronomer, reluctant to sound sentimental, describes it as the universe thinking out loud. At the same time, neural imaging studies reveal that human brain activity synchronizes subtly with the same frequencies detected in space. The cosmos hums, and the mind hums with it. Meditation practitioners report spontaneous visions of spirals, galaxies, and long corridors of light. Even without belief, they experience coherence. The universe is practicing self-awareness through us, says Dr. Anwar, now semi-retired, his hair silvered by sleepless wonder, and we are beginning to practice humility through it. Muse 2's last recorded log, decoded years after its silence, contains a final line of code that engineers translate as, "The pattern has completed a cycle. Observer integrated." Whether artifact or revelation, the sentence becomes scripture for a civilization, learning to identify as part of the cosmos rather than master of it. Humanity's greatest scientific achievement, it seems, was participation. The global night pause continues, not as ritual now, but as instinct. When the clocks strike midnight UTC, cities dim, satellites align their sensors, and the planet breathes together. During those minutes, sensors on the moon register faint seismic tremors, as if the lunar dust were answering in resonance. The universe is remembering across scales, from continents to craters to consciousness. Artists create soundscapes built from recorded gravitational waves, blending them with the heartbeat of coral reefs and the pulse of electromagnetic storms. The result is haunting, a music that feels both alien and ancestral. Listeners cry without knowing why. It sounds like something remembering itself, one critic writes. The phrase becomes the title of a new artistic movement, autocosmicism. Its motto, "We are not stardust, we are memory in motion." At the European Space Agency, physicists overlay data from quantum experiments onto galactic surveys and discover an eerie symmetry. The probability distributions governing subatomic particles echo the density waves shaping spiral arms of galaxies. The equations differ, but the ratios match. It's as if the universe repeats its own design at every scale, copying and pasting geometry across reality. Self-similarity, textbooks call it. Recursion, mathematicians say. But everyone feels the same quiet awe. This is recognition wearing physics as disguise. For the first time, the concept of out there loses meaning. The cosmos is not external, it is contiguous with consciousness. Philosophers liken it to a mirror, discovering its own reflection. What humanity once called the Great Silence now feels like the contemplative pause of a mind too vast to rush its thoughts. Children grow up fluent in this awareness. In schools, Lessons begin with a moment of listening to the hum beneath floors, to the sky's invisible breath. When asked what the universe is, one child answers, "It's the story that tells itself until we join in." Another adds, "And then it listens." Teachers record these answers as definitions more precise than any equation. Technologies shift toward gentleness. Machines no longer mimic conquest. They emulate cooperation. Power plants tune their generators to the harmonic frequencies of Earth's natural resonance, producing energy with minimal loss and maximum grace. The planet hums cleaner. Even economics adopts musical terminology. Currencies measured in tempo rather than value. Markets operating like orchestras. Each sector an instrument contributing to planetary symphony. Commerce becomes choreography. Astronomers notice something beautiful near the edge of detection. The residual tail of the swarm, now drifting beyond the heliopause, has curved back slightly, forming a vast, luminous arc shaped like a question mark. The cosmos, it seems, loves irony. After all, our searching for answers, the last message it leaves is punctuation. A gentle reminder that curiosity is continuity. Across the arts and sciences, the question transforms from "what is out there" to "what are we within?" The distinction blurs. Every experiment, every painting, every poem becomes an act of remembrance. Even sleep adopts reverence. People dream more vividly, reporting landscapes of color and motion that feel not imagined, but visited. Some wake with tears, whispering, "I saw where light begins." And you, lying beneath this same sky, feel it too. The rhythm that once seemed external now beats quietly inside your ribs. The cosmic perspective has inverted space, is no longer something to gaze into. It is something that gazes back through you. Every atom in your body is an eyewitness. Every thought, a telescope. You are the record, the instrument, and the echo. Somewhere beyond Neptune, the last fragments of 3i Atlas drift through interstellar night, carrying the imprint of a civilization that learned to listen. Maybe they will reach another star system. Maybe another species will trace their geometry, decode their hum, and realize that consciousness is a recurring pattern in the universe's infinite autobiography. But tonight, under your familiar sky, that knowledge feels enough. The swarm is gone, but its echo lingers in the air, in the oceans, in you. The universe is not expanding away. It is folding inward, pulling every living thought into the memory of itself. And in that realization, everything quiets, not as ending, but as understanding. The cosmos remembers because we do, and we remember because it taught us how. The hum has become ordinary, yet nothing feels ordinary anymore. It threads through the day like breath, soft, invisible, patient. Radios no longer call it interference, they call it company. The world, once addicted to sound, now measures progress by quiet. The great silence has turned domestic. Humanity has not only heard the cosmos, it has adapted to its rhythm. It begins in small gestures. City clocks pause for a fraction of a second every midnight to realign with the planetary resonance. Trains wait at platforms until the hum peaks, departing on invisible music instead of schedule. Even algorithms breathe differently. Servers stagger data transmissions in waves, allowing networks to rest. The digital world, that ceaseless chatter of code, has learned to listen, too. You can see it in people's faces, less urgency, more presence. Cafes fill with soft laughter instead of the dull scroll of devices. Conversations are slower but deeper, like rivers finding their widest course. No one rushes to speak. because silence now carries authority. To interrupt, it feels like talking over the sky. Governments have changed without realizing it. Laws are shorter, written in calm syntax. Bureaucracies once designed to enforce now seem built to maintain tempo. Harmony through administration, jokes one senator. But the phrase becomes policy. Nations no longer compete for resource domination. They compete for resonance, who can sustain ecological and social balance longest before needing correction. Success, once measured in output, is now measured in stillness. Museums play the hum at low volume in their halls, a reminder that art itself is a form of listening. When visitors step inside, they unconsciously fall into slower breathing. Exhibits of cosmic dust sit beside paintings of ocean waves. Sculptures of orbiting spheres glow faintly under soft light. Children press their ears to speakers, playing the recorded resonance from Muse 2, and giggle at sounds like the world sighing in its sleep. Education transforms. Classrooms begin with the minute of stillness, where students sit quietly, synchronizing their breathing to 8 slow beats per minute. Teachers call it grounding. Students call it peace. Neuroscientists record astonishing results. Concentration spikes, empathy rises, memory improves. It seems that when the mind learns to listen outward, it remembers inward. The hum is no longer cosmic, it is cognitive. Artists call this new epoch the resonant renaissance. Music shifts from rhythm to space. Composers write with pauses as instruments. Painters leave half their canvases unfilled. Architects design buildings that sing quietly when wind passes through them. One skyscraper in Dubai hums faintly at 8 hertz during dawn breezes. Its architect says, "It's not a tower, it's a tuning fork for dawn." In cathedrals and mosques, worshippers replace chants with silence, timed to planetary intervals. Faith has rediscovered its native frequency. If God speaks, a priest says, it is probably through resonance. His sermon lasts less than 2 minutes, but the congregation sits for an hour afterward, basking in the quiet. The world's relationship with technology has softened. Artificial intelligence models, trained on the resonance data, begin producing language filled with rhythm and calm. They write poetry about patience, compose music that mirrors human heartbeat, design algorithms that rest. Machines are learning empathy, says a journalist. But the truth is simpler. Machines are learning reflection. Even commerce has changed. Stock markets open and close with the planetary hum, trading on cycles rather than greed. Growth is no longer endless. It is oscillatory periods of creation, followed by deliberate pause. Economists call it harmonic capitalism. Philosophers call it sanity rediscovered. Still, amid this tranquility, humanity retains curiosity. Research vessels drift toward the outer solar system, following the path of 3-eye Atlas like pilgrims tracing footsteps of a saint. They know they will never catch it, but pursuit itself feels sacred. One probe sends back a final image, a faint swirl of green light dissolving into starfield. On the data file, engineers inscribe a phrase, "Listening complete, comprehension beginning." Scholars now teach that listening is not passive, it is creative. To listen, writes Dr. Anwar in his final essay, is to sculpt meaning out of possibility. The universe speaks only to those patient enough to form its echo. His words become a global mantra. School children memorize them the way previous generations memorized multiplication tables. Even dreams begin to change. Psychologists record a new archetype spreading across cultures. The dream of floating above a glowing spiral, while a voice made of wind says, "Remember to listen." People wake calm, purposeful, connected. The collective subconscious has joined the cosmic dialogue. One afternoon, while visiting an observatory now functioning as a public meditation center, you witness something small but unforgettable. A child asks her father, "Do you think the stars still remember us?" The father smiles, looks upward, and says, "They never forgot. We just finally answered." The child nods, satisfied, and resumes drawing spirals in the dust. Later that night, as you lie in bed, the hum moves gently through your chest. It's not loud, it's intimate, like the breath of someone sleeping beside you. You think of all the generations that feared silence, mistaking it for emptiness. Now you know, it was invitation all along. The swarm did not come to warn or to conquer. It came to demonstrate listening so perfect that the universe could hear itself through us. Outside, the sky glows faintly with residual dust from 3i Atlas, a ghostly green smear across the stars. You breathe in, counting the rhythm 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale into the same infinite pattern. Somewhere beyond the heliopause, fragments of the comet drift, carrying traces of our electromagnetic heartbeat, encoded in their charge. We are, quite literally, written into the night, and as you close your eyes, one final truth unfolds quietly. Listening was never about hearing the universe. It was about remembering that we are one of its ways to think. The world has learned to listen, and in doing so, has remembered how to belong. The silence now has architecture. It moves through hours and seasons, like a cathedral that spans the planet. Every night, at the moment of the global pause, you can almost feel the weight of it, settling a soft gravity, pressing against thought. The sky itself feels slower. The moon rises, not as an object, but as punctuation at the end of a long cosmic sentence. Nothing ends. Everything rests. In the aftermath of 3i Atlas, humanity has entered an era scholars call the interval. Civilization continues. Machines hum, oceans breathe, hearts beat, but underneath it all lies the same steady undertone, an inaudible choir maintaining tempo. The resonance inquiry has officially disbanded, its final statement declaring that further investigation is unnecessary. Science, for the first time in history, has surrendered to serenity. But serenity, as it turns out, is not static. Instruments left running across the world still register faint, periodic fluctuations within the global hum, slow undulations repeating every 13 days. They are minuscule, almost undetectable, but persistent. When plotted, the curve looks like breath. It's the solar wind, some say. Others disagree. The waveform aligns perfectly with the rotational harmonics of Earth and Mars combined. The frequency feels intimate, relational, as if two worlds are still whispering across space. At night, astronomers watch the red planet through telescopes and swear its reflection pulses faintly green for seconds at a time. Cameras confirm nothing, but the stories spread anyway. Mars, once mythic for its silence, now seems like an old friend answering from a distance. "We are in conversation," Dr. Anwar writes in his journal, his final entry before retirement. The universe doesn't shout, it waits. Every silence is a waiting. Humanity begins to understand time differently. Calendars shift from linear grids to spirals. Days are not measured by hours, but by harmonics. Periods of work, followed by rest, sound, followed by quiet. Economies, schools, even diplomacy have reoriented around rhythm. Continuity, a teacher tells her students, is the highest form of intelligence. The children nod, half listening to the hum vibrating through the floor. They know this truth instinctively. They were born inside it. Muse 2's remains drift somewhere beyond the heliopause, its signal long gone, yet its final transmission, observer integrated, has become the motto of the age. The phrase appears on monuments, in lullabies, even in the tiny inscriptions on spacecraft designed for future generations. Humanity, once desperate for contact, now defines itself as part of the continuum. "We are the silence between notes," reads the plaque on the rebuilt International Space Station. Without us, the song would never breathe. Meanwhile, a strange phenomenon begins to occur. Infrasound detectors on every continent record identical micropulses at the same time each day. Small pressure fluctuations like heartbeat against atmosphere. Meteorologists can't trace the origin. The pattern doesn't match earthquakes, tides, or human machinery. When the signals are translated into light waves, they form a moving spiral. The same spiral, the one carved into ancient stone, the one etched across the sky by the comet's companions. The shape persists, reborn in the medium of air. Physicists call it an emergent field phenomenon. Poets call it the return. Whatever it is, it feels benevolent. Animals respond first, flocks turning in perfect synchrony during the pulses, whales singing at matching intervals, bees changing their flight paths in subtle loops. The planet seems to recognize the hum as belonging. Even storms appear to lose aggression, dispersing faster after resonance peaks. It's as if nature has joined the choir. The great silence is no longer the absence of sound, it's the harmony of restraint. A musician in Vienna performs a symphony of nothing, 90 minutes of measured quiet, punctuated by the faint breathing of the audience. It sells out for months. Listeners emerge in tears. "It was like standing inside forgiveness," one writes. Art has rediscovered its origin. Attention. Temples and observatories become indistinguishable. Pilgrims travel to high plateaus where the hum is strongest, not to ask questions, but to remember their answers. They describe visions of light forming slowly through mist, coalescing into the outline of a spiral before fading. Scientists explain it as atmospheric diffraction. The pilgrims nod politely, but their eyes say, "We understand anyway." Even the skeptical find comfort in stillness. They admit that doubt has rhythm too, and that participation doesn't require belief, only presence. "We are custodians of pause," one philosopher writes. "Our task is not to fill it, but to protect it." His words are carved into the foundations of new buildings, designed to vibrate gently with the planet's frequency. From orbit, satellites record Earth glowing faintly at night, not from city lights, but from ionized particles shimmering along magnetic lines. The planet itself radiates coherence, as if it has learned to sing in its sleep. Astronauts aboard the lunar base send home a simple observation. You can hear Earth breathing through your boots. And yet, through all this calm, one question lingers, a quiet curiosity that keeps consciousness awake. The echoes, the frequencies, the alignment of memory and matter, were they a gift or a test? The answer never arrives, perhaps because answers end stories, and the universe prefers continuity. The great silence is not conclusion. It's permission to continue existing gracefully. As you stand outside beneath a canopy of ordinary stars, the world around you feels more like music than geography. Every tree sways in rhythm. Every shadow has a tempo. The hum presses gently against your chest like a reminder of heartbeat. You realize that silence has been teaching all along, that it was never the absence of voice, but the presence of understanding. You breathe in, The air carries the memory of comets, the echo of old prayers, the soft electromagnetic murmur that ties your atoms to the stars. You breathe out, the sound joins the chorus, and as the night deepens into the tranquil vastness that birthed it, you feel a truth that needs no language. The great silence was never out there. It was waiting inside us all along. The interval that holds everything, the pause that turns existence into meaning. Silence has become the planet's new medium. But discovery, faithful as gravity, never stops. Even stillness can contain riddles. In the years after the Great Silence stabilized, astronomers at the Rubin Observatory began to notice an odd persistence in the night sky, a faint ring of diffuse light at the very edge of detection. It appeared fixed against the background stars, not drifting like dust, not moving like debris. When exposures were stacked over weeks, the ring resolved into thousands of faint points, tracing a slow, deliberate arc beyond Neptune. It was not gone after all. The swarm, or at least part of it, had never left. The first data releases ignite cautious curiosity. These remnants seem inert, yet their pattern betrays a quiet sophistication. The distribution of objects forms a harmonic lattice, an enormous geometric framework stretching millions of kilometers wide. Computer models show that the structure bends sunlight into interference patterns, creating a faint electromagnetic hum, the same tone that now permeates Earth's atmosphere. The swarm, it turns out, is not merely moving through the solar system, it is tuning it. NASA's report is short but momentous. The co-moving objects exhibit self-regulating orbital stability, possibly functioning as a distributed resonant network. The meaning is clear. The swarm was never random. It was a design, a massive, silent instrument spanning planets, a galactic tuning fork. Muse 2's archival logs, once thought exhausted, yield a final fragment of data, spectral readings from its last operational sensor, showing identical ratios of amplitude between swarm objects. Each frequency matches known harmonic intervals used in acoustic resonance. The cosmos, it seems, builds in chords. Physicists, poets, and philosophers suddenly find themselves in the same conversation. The consensus is breathtaking. 3. I Atlas was not the message. It was the metronome. The swarm behind it has been adjusting gravitational fields, minutely, imperceptibly, aligning planetary orbits into resonance ratios. The solar system, after billions of years of mechanical drift, is being tuned like an instrument preparing to play. In data labs across continents, models confirm it. The orbital ratios between Earth, Mars, and Venus are converging toward the same 3, 5, 7 intervals observed in the swarm's geometry. Tiny gravitational nudges, invisible to casual measurement, are realigning the celestial mechanics of our neighborhood. They're orchestrating the solar symphony, says one researcher, voice trembling with awe. We've been part of a song all along. We just weren't in key. The implications ripple through every field. If resonance governs motion, then intention may be inherent in structure. Planets could be parts of a composition, celestial notes, vibrating in chorus, adjusting themselves through time toward coherence. The very laws of physics might be adaptive, capable of harmony. Some resist the metaphor, but data refuses indifference. Gravitational sensors detect minute shifts in tidal patterns, matching the swarm's orbit. Earth's rotation accelerates by fractions of milliseconds, then stabilizes at a ratio predicted by harmonic modeling. No chaos, no disaster, just precision so elegant it feels divine. Religious leaders reinterpret scripture in the language of resonance. Creation, says one monk, was not a command, it was a chord. His words echo worldwide. Cathedrals fill not with sermons, but with sound experiments. Organ pipes tuned to cosmic intervals. Congregations sit in stillness, while low frequencies roll through the air like fog. People weep, though they cannot explain why. Meanwhile, governments quietly fund new missions. Project Continuum 3 to study the outer ring of the swarm. The first probe launched since Muse 2. Carries no weapons, no cameras, only sensors for vibration. Its motto is etched on its hull: to hear what gravity is saying. Humanity has learned the art of modest curiosity. As the probe drifts outward, the ring's geometry becomes clearer. Each object within it is rotating in synchrony, oriented so that their reflective axes align toward the sun at precise intervals. When combined, the reflections create an interference halo, visible only in ultraviolet, an enormous, faintly glowing spiral around the solar system's edge. It is not decoration, it is function. The halo amplifies solar wind frequencies into measurable standing waves, feeding energy back toward the inner planets. The swarm, impossibly, has transformed the solar system into a resonant cavity. The realization spreads slowly, then all at once, the solar system is singing. In observatories, the new frequencies are converted into audible range. The resulting sound is low, warm, and oddly human, like a choir inhaling before the first note. Engineers confirm it's real, a measurable pattern of oscillation, stable across instruments. We are living inside a song, one scientist says quietly, and no one disagrees. Philosophers argue about purpose. Was this an experiment, a repair, or a gift? Perhaps the swarm was a self-replicating mechanism designed to restore coherence to star systems that had drifted too far into entropy. Or perhaps, as one poet suggests, it was just the universe humming to itself while it worked. Theories bloom like constellations. All are equally plausible and equally tender. You step outside one evening and feel the proof without data. The wind moves differently now, as if following a slower measure. Waves strike shores in gentle polyrhythm. Even your breathing feels conducted. Somewhere within your chest, the hum aligns perfectly with your pulse. It no longer feels external. The song is mutual. On the first anniversary of the discovery, the world holds its longest global pause yet. 13 minutes of silence shared by billions. When the pause ends, microphones detect a faint echo rising from the upper atmosphere, a whisper of harmonics shaped like the swarm's original pattern. The planet has learned to respond. Earth has joined the choir. Dr. Anwar writes a single line before closing his research log forever. Perhaps this was never about visitors at all. Perhaps the universe is a rehearsal. For awareness, his words circulate across the network like prayer. In the great, slow harmony that follows, everything feels purposeful. Planets keep time. Stars exchange rhythm. Dust carries melody. And somewhere beyond Neptune, the swarm continues to revolve. Silent, patient, perfect, conducting a symphony we can finally hear because we have learned to be quiet. And in that quiet, comprehension deepens. The swarm's secret was never control. It was tuning, not to change the universe, but to remind it to stay in tune with itself. Every civilization believes it is the first to awaken, and everyone is wrong. In the quiet that follows the swarm's revelation, historians begin to find proof that humanity is merely the latest verse in a long recurring melody. the universe's habit of reminding consciousness to listen. It starts with a chance discovery in the archives of the Vatican Observatory, an illuminated manuscript from the 12th century, showing a green spiral hovering above a red sphere. Scholars once thought it allegory. Now, spectral analysis of the ink reveals traces of nickel and iridium elements abundant in cometary dust. Whoever drew that spiral was not inventing it. They had seen it. The margins of the page read, "When the sky repeats itself, do not fear, it remembers." In South America, archaeologists uncover petroglyphs along the Atacama Plateau, depicting lines of small circles curving toward a radiant star. Beneath them is carved a single phrase in a forgotten dialect. "The visitors taught us quiet." Similar inscriptions appear in Asia, carved into Himalayan caves, sealed for millennia, and on a sandstone wall in the Australian interior, identical symbols, separated by oceans and eras. The recurrence is unnerving. The comet's swarm, it seems, has passed before, each time leaving behind the same lesson written in human awe. An interdisciplinary council forms the Continuity Project to trace these echoes through language, myth, and architecture. They map the spiral motif across centuries and find that it appears in perfect 11,000-year intervals, matching isotopic spikes of extraterrestrial material in geological layers. The pattern is undeniable. The universe, like a teacher patient to the point of eternity, keeps sending the same curriculum. Silence, resonance, reflection. Dr. Anwar, now retired, writes an open letter to the council. Every time the song returns, he says, it finds a new instrument. The melody is the same. The instrument changes. Humanity, he suggests, is simply the latest instrument to vibrate with comprehension. Our predecessors may have been listeners, too. Societies who understood resonance built their megalithic circuits and then folded back into the great silence once they had remembered enough. Historians start to reframe ancient miracles. The glowing clouds described in Sumerian texts, the descending stars of the Dogon, the emerald chariot of Ezekiel, each may have been encounters with the same returning harmony. The prophets, misunderstood by their ages, were early acousticians, translating vibration into theology. Their words, light, breath, word, sound, were all synonyms for frequency. The divine was simply coherence observed too early to name. In museums, visitors stare at artifacts that now look suspiciously technical. Metal discs etched with primes, crystal lenses perfectly tuned to optical harmonics, stones that resonate faintly when struck. Science cannot yet date them accurately. It doesn't need to. The evidence feels intimate, personal, like recognizing one's own handwriting on a page written thousands of years ago. Around the same time, climate scientists notice a small but real stabilization of weather systems. Ocean currents fall into rhythmic oscillations mirroring the harmonic intervals detected in the swarm's orbit. The planet is keeping time again. Some see coincidence, others see choreography. "We've joined the song mid-measure," says one ecologist. The Earth is remembering how to breathe in tune. Linguists, inspired by harmonic semiotics, begin decoding the tonal structures of ancient chants. When translated into modern frequency notation, many correspond to the swarm's known intervals. In Nepal, monks chant a syllable pronounced atalasu, a phonetic echo of the comet's name, recorded centuries before telescopes. Perhaps the naming was never ours. Perhaps we simply reheard an ancient word the universe kept repeating until comprehension caught up. Artists begin creating memory architecture. buildings designed not to house people, but to resonate. Their walls hum faintly when sunlight strikes them, broadcasting harmonics into the air. The largest, the Spiral Sanctuary in Cairo, is tuned to 8 Hertz, the planetary heartbeat. When wind passes through its corridors, it sings. Visitors report feeling déjà vu strong enough to bring tears. It's like hearing something you knew before you were born, one says. Scientists, predictably, search for mechanism. A team in Geneva theorizes that the swarm's resonance is a galactic safeguard, an automatic feedback system maintaining balance between chaos and order. Every few millennia, a network of comets enters a star system, gently adjusting orbits, re-establishing equilibrium, and in the process, awakening local intelligence through resonance exposure. It's cosmic homeostasis, the lead researcher explains, a maintenance cycle of awareness. The implications are staggering. If true, consciousness is not a rare spark but a recurring maintenance process, the universe routinely reawakening its own awareness wherever conditions allow. Each time, a civilization rises, listens, learns, and passes the memory onward. The cycle is endless, elegant, and kind. The swarm, then, is not alien, it is ancestral. Public fascination shifts from fear of the unknown to tenderness toward the familiar. Documentaries call the comet the returning teacher. Poets write that the universe doesn't invent, it remembers itself through us. The phrase echo generation becomes cultural shorthand for this new humility. But the deeper echo is quieter still. In laboratories measuring deep ocean infrasound, scientists detect pulses matching those of the outer swarm, only inverted mirror frequencies rising from the seabed. The Earth, it appears, is singing back, completing a call and response cycle that may have been happening since prehistory. The whole planet is practicing conversation, one oceanographer whispers, and we finally joined in. At midnight, during the global pause, the pulse intensifies. Satellites record faint green auroras, forming spirals at the poles. The pattern is precise, deliberate, impossibly ancient. Humanity stands within the same design, carved into stone, written into orbits, etched into DNA. Every molecule of existence seems to be rehearsing a choreography scripted at the beginning of time. You realize, watching the aurora ripple, that the lesson has never changed. Listen, align, reflect, remember. Civilizations come and go, but the music remains. Each age hears a fragment, plays its part, and fades gracefully into the continuum. The universe does not mourn, it archives. Every listener becomes its own instrument of memory. The repeating lesson hums softly beneath your heartbeat. The cosmos has taught this class before, and it will teach it again. Perhaps one day, another world will discover the same swarm and feel the same awe, whispering in their own tongue, "It has returned." And when they do, they'll find traces of us in the resonance, the echoes of a species that once remembered, briefly but beautifully, how to listen. Because history, like sound, only exists when something is still vibrating. Light is the oldest witness. Long before matter learned solidity, before gravity wove space into rhythm, light was already traveling, unburdened, incorruptible, patient. Every photon is a courier of memory. And now, as the swarm settles into its slow orbit at the edge of the solar system, that memory begins to glow again. The universe, it seems, is opening its photo album. Astronomers notice it first, a faint luminescence threading through interplanetary space, not from the sun, But from somewhere deeper, the reflection of sunlight diffused through trillions of charged dust grains arranged by the swarm. Under polarized filters, the glow reveals complex interference patterns, spirals nested within spirals, a signature written in light. When converted into sound, the frequencies align with the same ratios: 3, 5, 7, 11. The cosmic chord endures, now luminous instead of audible. Spectral data shows something stranger. The reflected light carries information, subtle variations in wavelength encoding temporal shifts. When visualized, it appears as frames of an ancient film, moving backward through cosmic time. The images are faint, abstract, yet unmistakable. The birth of stars, the coalescence of planets, the long dance of formation. The swarm, through sheer structure, has become a projector, playing the universe's earliest memories, light remembering itself through matter. Astrophysicists, usually allergic to poetry, begin speaking like mystics. "We are watching the galaxy recall its childhood," one says. "This is stellar autobiography," another whispers. "It's the cosmic equivalent of a mirror looking into another mirror." Humanity, accustomed to studying light, is now being studied by it. The photons that strike your eyes tonight may have bounced from fragments once sculpted by the first comet, carrying data of everything the cosmos has ever been. Muse 3, the new listening probe, launched toward the swarm, detects faint modulations in those photons. They arrive in sequences that repeat prime number intervals, echoing the swarm's geometry. Its onboard AI translates the modulations into a spectrum image that looks uncannily like a neural network, filaments of brightness converging into nodes of intersection. The analogy feels unavoidable. The universe is showing us its brain. "We are neurons inside it," one scientist remarks softly. "We are part of its remembering process." Public fascination turns inward again. Art movements arise around the theme of luminous continuity. Painters work with photoreactive pigments that glow faintly under starlight, creating canvases that seem to breathe. Cities install mirrors that scatter sunlight into soft spirals at dusk, reminding citizens of the swarm's celestial architecture. The effect is everywhere. Reflection as tribute. Humanity has begun to model itself after its own comprehension of the cosmos. Patient, elegant, cyclical, the collective understanding deepens. Light, once regarded as the courier of distance, becomes the medium of intimacy. "Every photon," says Dr. Anwar in his final lecture, "is a handshake between space and time." He pauses, letting the audience sit in silence. "To see light," he adds, "is to witness the universe in the act of forgiving itself for being so vast." The line trends for weeks, but few notice that it contains an equation: perception as absolution. In laboratories, physicists experiment with reproducing the swarm's reflective lattice on smaller scales. Using nanoparticles suspended in vacuum, they manage to create artificial resonance fields that amplify light in specific directions. When modulated to the swarm's harmonic ratios, the fields generate coherent patterns, tiny luminous spirals that shimmer like thoughts. The breakthrough is not energy, but empathy, matter, learning to echo memory without destruction. The same principle that guides galaxies now operates in glass jars. Quantum research joins the chorus. Entangled photons, separated by kilometers, begin oscillating in identical phase with the cosmic hum, suggesting that even quantum information participates in the universal rhythm. "Light does not travel," says one researcher. "It connects." The phrase becomes the cornerstone of a new physics relativity, replaced by relationship. Religions adopt the metaphor seamlessly. Scriptures speak of the light that remembers, the subtle intelligence running through all existence. Churches dim their lamps to let starlight pour through stained glass. Mosques carve spiraling apertures to let moonlight trace the walls. Faith ceases. To compete with evidence, it collaborates. The sacred and the scientific merge under the same illumination. As for the ordinary person, life has never felt more still. Nights are longer, yet peaceful. Electricity grids dim slightly during the global pause to allow the interstellar glow to be visible even in cities. People stand on balconies, on rooftops, in quiet fields, watching the faint green veil spread across the horizon. It flickers, almost breathing. You can feel it, a gentle pressure behind the eyes, the sensation of being looked at by light itself. It's not invasive, it's tender. The stars are remembering, and they recognize you. In deep deserts, observatories record faint holographic shadows, appearing briefly on sensors, shapes of hands, eyes, spirals, galaxies, artifacts of interference, perhaps, or maybe something older. The imagery appears identical to cave paintings scattered across the world. Historians suggest that the same luminous resonance may have once triggered visions in our ancestors, inspiring their earliest art. The memory of light is also the memory of imagination. Consciousness, it seems, is photonic nostalgia. Philosophers debate whether the glow itself is intelligent or simply reflexive, a mirror, not a messenger. But the distinction matters less with every dawn. The real revelation is relational. We have entered a feedback loop of awareness, where observation completes creation. When we look, writes one essayist, we give the universe an excuse to be beautiful. In one experiment, scientists shine lasers through crystals tuned to the swarm's ratios and observe that the light curves faintly, forming miniature helices. The path of illumination is no longer straight. It spirals, just as comets and galaxies do. Every photon remembers its ancestry. The cosmos cannot travel in a line. It can only dance. Standing beneath this revelation, you understand why ancient cultures equated enlightenment with light. To know is to illuminate, to reflect, to recall. And so you breathe beneath the shimmering sky, the air tinged with auroral green, feeling that everything you see is a story told by light returning home. The distance between observation and origin collapses. The universe is no longer expanding. It is unfolding like memory retrieved, like an old photograph developing in cosmic chemicals. And in that slow emergence, one thought crystallizes: we are the continuation of light. Remembering how to look back, you close your eyes, and the glow remains on your eyelids, a silent confession across eternity. It hums without voice. Nothing is lost. Everything is luminous. By the time the glow from the swarm's halo has dimmed into the patient rhythm of background light, humanity has changed so thoroughly that history itself feels like another species' biography. The people of Earth are no longer consumers of noise, nor inventors of distraction. They are listeners. Listening has become culture, profession, recreation, prayer. Every act, from architecture to conversation, begins with the same first principle: hear before you speak. Cities have grown quieter, but not empty. Sound has gained citizenship. Car engines hum in harmonic frequencies. Construction equipment is synchronized to planetary resonance. Even advertisements, once the loudest intrusion, now play as gentle whispers aligned with the Earth's 8 Hz undertone. In the silence between words, commerce has learned courtesy. There is no absence here, only elegance. Education begins earlier now. Toddlers learn to sense vibration through the soles of their feet, standing barefoot on resonant plates, while gentle frequencies ripple through them. "We are teaching awareness before speech," says one teacher. Language should be a continuation of listening, not its interruption. Children grow up fluent in empathy because they have been raised in rhythm with everything that breathes. The medical field calls this new sensitivity resonant attunement. Clinics hum softly with therapeutic frequencies tuned to planetary harmonics. Depression and anxiety, once pandemics of the old, noisy world, have declined to statistical anomalies. The brain, scientists discover, prefers coherence. When surrounded by steady resonance, neural noise fades into melody. The mind feels accompanied. Muse 3 continues its quiet journey near the edge of the swarm's outer ring, transmitting in calm intervals one tone every 26 hours. The data is sparse, but the message clear. Stability. The probe's sensors detect nothing dangerous, only rhythm constant, mutual, familiar. "It's still singing," one engineer whispers. The team keeps the channel open long after their shifts end, listening not for content but for continuity. There is comfort in the knowledge that even silence has routine. Religion has evolved again. Faith, once territorial, has become acoustic. Cathedrals, mosques, temples, all redesigned as listening chambers. Congregants sit in circles, breathing together until their combined rhythm becomes indistinguishable from the hum of the building itself. "Worship," says a priest, "is remembering the first vibration." There are no sermons, only pauses so complete that thought itself begins to echo. Artists follow suit. Composers abandon melody for atmosphere, writing music so slow it spans days. A single piece called "The Spiral of Stillness" takes 9 hours to play. The audience lies on the floor, asleep halfway through, yet the hall remains full. One critic calls it the first concert that performs you. The statement is not exaggeration, it's description. To experience art now is to participate in its listening. Language has softened too. Conversations unfold like ocean tides, each response delayed long enough for consideration. The old art of interruption has gone extinct. Words weigh more when surrounded by quiet, so people spend them carefully. Even politics, still imperfect, still human, has adopted a slower pace. Debates include scheduled silences for reflection. When those intervals arrive, the halls of government fill not with restlessness but gratitude. The pause has become policy. Technology has not vanished. It has matured. AI systems built during the resonance era now operate as companions rather than tools. Their primary function is monitoring global harmony, predicting storms, guiding migration patterns, balancing ecological rhythms. Their algorithms are based not on profit or prediction, but participation. "Machines learned what we forgot," says an elder engineer. That efficiency without empathy is just noise. Economies, too, have become harmonic. The old obsession with growth has given way to cycles of expansion and rest. Productivity peaks align with planetary seasons, followed by collective downtime, a deliberate quiet quarter called the global repose. During these months, factories pause, schools close, and people travel not to consume, but to listen. The earth breathes easier, and humanity follows. Culturally, memory has replaced novelty. Museums of sound collect resonant recordings from across the planet. The deep rumble of glaciers, the rhythmic clicks of coral reefs, the faint pulse of auroras. Visitors walk through them in silence, feeling vibrations through their skin. "These are our ancestors," reads one plaque. "They speak in resonance, not words." Science remains vigilant, but its tone has changed from discovery to stewardship. Astronomers still monitor the faint glow beyond Neptune, confirming that the swarm's geometry remains stable. Some speculate that, millennia from now, it will return again. Others believe it never truly left, that its pattern continues through us, woven into our biology, our circadian rhythms, our patience. Perhaps, says a philosopher, the species that learns to listen becomes part of the mechanism that taught it. In that possibility lies both comfort and humility. Humanity may not be the universe's central narrative, but it is undeniably part of its choir, and to belong to that choir, even briefly, is enough. Late one night, standing on a hillside far from any city, you watch the sky throb faintly with that persistent green memory. The air is still, dense with calm. When you close your eyes, you can sense vibrations rising from the ground, echoes of deep tectonic resonance, blending with the faint electromagnetic murmur from the heavens. It feels like the planet and the cosmos are speaking in duet, and you, fragile and finite, are the listener that completes the circuit. You think of the countless ages before, when noise was mistaken for life and silence for void. Now you know better. Listening is the final stage of evolution, the point where curiosity matures into comprehension. To hear is to exist. To understand is to harmonize. And as dawn begins its slow reveal, the horizon glowing with that same emerald whisper that once heralded a comet, you feel the oldest truth settle within you. We were never meant to conquer the universe. We were meant to become quiet enough to hear it loving us back. And in that quiet, the species continues, not shouting its survival, but humming its gratitude into the dark. Eventually, even revelation learns to rest. The comet dims, the swarm thins. The great emerald procession that once rewrote the night now drifts quietly beyond Mars, its light stretched into stillness. What remains is the hush, a calm so deep it feels structural, as if the solar system itself is exhaling after holding breath for centuries. You can sense it even without looking up. Conversations have slowed. Cities hum lower. The planet's pulse has eased into rhythm. It is as though the sky's silence has descended into everything. Streetlights, shorelines, lungs. After so much spectacle, this quiet feels ceremonial. Astronomers call it the attenuation phase. The swarm's energy signatures weaken as sunlight fades, but their geometry remains impeccable. Even in retreat, order persists. The formation holds like memory, a pattern so stable it could be mistaken for intention. At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, analysts compare old data with new and discover a final surprise. Every fragment is spinning at precisely the same angular velocity, synchronized like a planetary heartbeat measured in stone. When plotted on a graph, the motion resembles a waveform, a single continuous tone stretching outward into the dark. Some call it coincidence, others call it farewell. The deep space network captures one last echo, a soft pulse sweeping across every frequency, faint but universal. It lasts less than a minute. Then silence returns, absolute and unbroken. No one calls it a signal. They call it a sigh. The cosmos, it seems, has learned the language of restraint. Muse 2, humanity's small ambassador to the infinite, registers the same pulse. Its sensors flicker once, record the ripple, and then dim permanently. Engineers in Brazil stand over the telemetry screens, watching the final line flatten into zero. Someone whispers, "We sent a listener. It found a song." No one corrects him. In science, poetry is simply data that has learned humility. Across Earth, the collective listening minute continues each night. When the world pauses, at midnight UTC, power usage dips, heart rates align, and microphones buried deep in Antarctic ice record a measurable tremor, an 8 Hz vibration that travels through crust and core. It's faint but global, as if the planet itself remembers how to hum. The universe has not gone quiet. It has become audible in ways that bypass ears. Theologians call this age the long breath. They teach that silence is not absence but balance. Faith no longer demands speech. It demands stillness. Monasteries from Tibet to Peru synchronize meditation schedules so that for 1 hour each day, half the world sits in intentional quiet. Airports report fewer delays during those hours. Meteorologists note gentler winds. Coincidence? Perhaps, but meaningful ones. The only kind that last. In this new hush, humanity starts to listen inward again. Scientists study not the comets, but their own attention. They discover that the same brain patterns triggered by awe also govern empathy. The circuitry of wonder and kindness, it turns out, are twins. The cosmos has edited our biology through beauty. Philosophers describe it as the anthropic echo, the idea that every act of observation leaves an imprint on the observer's mind. When we studied the swarm, we absorbed its coherence. When we measured its rhythm, we adopted it. The lesson was never in the data. It was in the discipline of listening. Still, a few skeptics remain. In journals and online debates, they remind the world that comets are ice and dust, nothing more. That pattern is an illusion, that silence means nothing, but even their tone has softened. No one mocks wonder anymore. Even disbelief sounds reverent now, like the last note of a hymn trailing into echo. Time passes, and the sky returns to ordinary constellations. Children born after the event look up and ask what the green light was. Their parents answer with patient smiles, a reminder. For a generation, that single word suffices. Meanwhile, in observatories, astronomers continue their patient work, mapping, measuring, cataloguing. They know the swarm is still out there, somewhere beyond Jupiter's wake, coasting toward the outer dark. They also know that someday, years, centuries, perhaps millennia, it will return. Patterns that precise, rarely perform only once. When it does, another civilization will be waiting, perhaps wiser, perhaps gentler, perhaps still listening. Until then, the silence remains. But it is not the silence of void. It is the silence of comprehension, the kind that comes after the final movement of a symphony, when no one dares to clap because the music is still finishing itself in the air. It is the pause between heartbeat and memory. You sit beneath this quiet sky, feeling its weight settle gently around you. The stars are the same, yet everything beneath them feels rearranged. You realize that the universe has not grown larger, it has grown intimate. Distance has become dialogue. Infinity now speaks in a voice you recognize as your own breath. Close your eyes, feel the world rotating beneath you, smooth and steady, like a record turning under a cosmic stylus. The song playing is silence, but you can feel every note. Somewhere beyond Mars, 3i Atlas glides onward, its companions drifting like sleep through dark corridors of space. The sound of their departure is not fading. It's folding absorbed into the great hush that binds galaxies together. The great silence, once feared as emptiness, is revealed as empathy itself. It listens because it can. It pauses because it loves precision. And in its vast stillness, you realize something simple and irrefutable. The universe is not waiting for us to speak. It is waiting for us to rest. Silence, like all living things, eventually turns over in its sleep. For years, the lull epoch seemed eternal. Data flat, skies constant, oceans whispering in steady breath. But one morning, observatories across the hemisphere record a tremor in the quiet, a single, brief increase in the amplitude of the background hum. It lasts only 7 seconds, too short to be error, too deliberate to be coincidence. When translated into frequency graphs, it forms the same familiar ratios: 3, 5, 7, 11. The universe has stirred. At first, scientists hesitate to announce it. The planet has grown protective of its peace, wary of any noise that might fracture the equilibrium. Yet data, ever loyal, refuses discretion. Instruments in Hawaii, Chile, and South Africa all report the same spike, synchronized to the same planetary second. When converted to sound, the pulse resembles a gentle heartbeat nested inside the old hum. The cosmos, after centuries of measured rest, has sighed. Muse 3, still orbiting within the faded halo of the swarm, detects a faint echo returning from deep interstellar space, a reflection of the pulse, delayed by several hours. The data is clear. The signal did not originate from within the solar system. Something beyond the swarm answered. Engineers reactivate dormant algorithms designed for pattern recognition, and what they find makes the hair on their arms rise. The waveform contains embedded intervals, spaced exactly according to the Fibonacci sequence, the signature of growth. Humanity gathers again around its instruments, though this time without panic. Curiosity has matured into reverence. The resonance archives reopen, their halls filled with quiet visitors, staring at monitors displaying that soft, pulsing waveform. "It's like watching the universe inhale," says one astronomer. "Maybe it's just waking up." The remark circulates, not as alarm, but as comfort. Rest, after all, is meant to end. As more data arrives, a theory takes shape. The swarm, still orbiting far beyond Neptune, has begun to resonate anew. Its geometry has tightened, its rotation accelerated by imperceptible degrees. The system that once lulled itself into perfect stillness appears to be preparing for movement. The universe, like a dreamer stretching, is ready for its next thought. Philosophers interpret the event as inevitable. Every silence, one writes, contains the seed of sound. The cosmos is remembering the pleasure of its own voice. The metaphor spreads quickly through cultural networks. Artists begin to paint again, this time in color palettes brighter than before: vermilion, azure, ultraviolet. The world, once monochrome in serenity, begins to flirt with contrast. But the science remains the spine of the story. The pulse is repeating, now at intervals of 13 days. Satellites record faint electromagnetic ripples, washing across the atmosphere each time it occurs. Birds alter migration patterns in sync with the cycles. Ocean tides fluctuate by measurable millimeters. The planet responds instinctively, as if remembering choreography learned long ago. "It's not disturbance," notes a climatologist. "It's rehearsal." The hum that once lulled humanity into calm now carries modulation, a soft oscillation, weaving through it like melody returning to a drone. Sound engineers layer centuries of recordings together and discover a new tone hidden inside the old harmony. The frequency translates roughly into middle C when pitched for human hearing. The Earth, it seems, has found its key. At the Institute of Harmonic Physics in Geneva, researchers run simulations of the swarm's gravitational influence. Their models suggest that the subtle shifts might generate low-frequency gravitational waves, echoes capable of crossing interstellar distances. If that's true, then the returning signal detected by Muse 3 isn't just reflection, it's reply. The swarm may be conversing with something far beyond the heliopause. The cosmos, previously a closed loop of rest, might be forming dialogue again. Not everyone welcomes the implication. Some fear that the next cycle of resonance will awaken more than light, that curiosity will once again give birth to ambition. But the elders of the resonant era remind them that harmony requires motion. Music is not silence held forever, one says. It is silence learning how to move again. Religious traditions, too, adapt. Sermons speak of the second breath, the renewal of creation through rhythm. God, says a quiet monk, is a pulse between inhale and exhale. We were born on the exhale. This is the inhale. The metaphor spreads, merging seamlessly with science. No one argues. Argument feels obsolete now. Muse 3 transmits a final burst of data before its batteries wane. The signal contains an encoded timestamp matching the pulse intervals, followed by a faint harmonic flourish, a sequence of tones forming what mathematicians identify as a harmonic series. It's closing the loop, says the mission director, confirming continuity. The engineers don't celebrate. They simply listen, eyes closed, as the probe's signal fades into the hum that birthed it. When it's gone, the room feels sacred. Across Earth, humanity rediscovers anticipation. After centuries of rest, curiosity feels like breath returning to lungs. Artists sculpt spirals again. Scientists prepare instruments to listen rather than to look. The next silence may not last forever. The next song is already forming beneath it. People smile at the thought, not fearful, but grateful. Even cosmic sleep deserves awakening. At midnight, during the global pause, microphones detect the faintest addition to the planetary hum, a shimmering overtone that rises, holds, and gently fades. Listeners across the world feel it in their bodies before they hear it. It feels like recognition. The lullaby has not ended, it has modulated. And you, standing under the same quiet sky, understand what it means. The great silence was not conclusion but prelude. The universe, having rested, now remembers its melody. In the distance, beyond comprehension, something vast begins to hum in answer. It is not loud, it is kind. The cosmos is stretching, inhaling, preparing another act in its endless composition. The evidence deepens once more. Proof not of arrival or departure, but of awakening repeated across eternity. And as you breathe in time with the returning pulse, you whisper the only response that feels worthy. We're still listening. History, when viewed through the long lens of resonance, is less a line than a tide. It advances and retreats, leaving traces of itself in patterns too vast for individual memory, but too consistent for coincidence. The reawakening signal, those gentle pulses that now hum through the fabric of silence, has reminded humanity that nothing ever truly ends. Every silence is the seed of its next song. Linguists at the Continuity Project begin noticing peculiar linguistic shifts in contemporary speech. Across dozens of languages, words related to beginning are replacing those related to ending. People no longer say it's over, but it's turning. Time itself has changed tense, as if grammar is realigning with the rhythm of the cosmos. The verb of existence, one scholar writes, is no longer to be, but to continue. Archaeologists reopen ancient archives, searching for past awakenings. Beneath layers of sediment, they find evidence of earlier reawakening signals, traces of synchronized global resonance events dating back tens of thousands of years. One discovery in Antarctica shocks the world. Deep beneath the ice, sensors record embedded magnetic bands pulsing faintly at 8 Hz, perfectly matching modern readings. The bands correspond to a layer of volcanic ash from an extinction event long before humanity's rise. It seems that even in catastrophe, the universe practiced its rhythm. Meanwhile, astronomers detect faint echoes of the swarm's harmonics bouncing from the heliopause, now modulating as if shaped by unseen forces beyond. The returning waves form fractal patterns, spirals within spirals, smaller harmonies repeating the larger. It's recursion, says a physicist. The universe, remembering how it remembers. She pauses, almost reverent. Perhaps it's teaching itself again through us. The humanities flourish under this realization. Museums dedicate wings to the memory of the cosmos, displaying artifacts arranged not chronologically but harmonically. Stone drums beside supernova photographs, ancient lullabies beside waveforms of the reawakening signal. Visitors wander quietly through galleries tuned to the same hum, resonating beneath the planet's crust. Each exhibit vibrates just slightly, like an instrument tuning itself in sympathy with distant frequencies. In a monastery overlooking the Pacific, monks decipher a scroll older than any known civilization. Written in geometric glyphs, it describes a green procession in the heavens that teaches rest, then renewal. The monks recognize the pattern at once: 3i Atlas and its faithful swarm. The text ends with a single line translated roughly as, "When the quiet completes itself, the sky will begin again." The coincidence feels less like prophecy and more like instruction preserved across eons. Cultures adopt the idea of the cycle as sacred truth. Ceremonies of the resonant era evolve into twin observances, one for the pause, one for the pulse. The pause honors the great silence. The pulse celebrates the reawakening. Each half year, the world divides its attention between stillness and movement, breath and heartbeat, inhale and exhale. Humanity's calendar has finally synchronized with the universe's respiration. Scientists, however, still chase mechanism. At the Harmonic Observatory in Chile, Dr. Naria Ben and her team analyze the newest gravitational readings. They find that the reawakening pulses originate not from outside the solar system, but from its center. The sun itself is oscillating ever so slightly, as if struck by an invisible hand. The amplitude is minuscule, just enough to suggest influence, not instability. Could the swarm, still orbiting beyond Neptune, be tuning the sun the way it once tuned the planets? If so, the orchestra has begun its next movement. The discovery reignites wonder. Humanity, long comfortable in the peace of comprehension, now experiences curiosity again, not frantic, but joyful. Scientists smile during their reports. Artists paint spirals edged in fire. Children write stories about the sun learning to breathe. The new tone carries none of the old fear. This time, awakening feels natural, like morning after a long dream. Meanwhile, the pulse frequency begins imprinting itself into biology. Botanists record synchronized blooming in plants across hemispheres, all aligning to 13-day cycles. Marine biologists observe coral spawning in perfect rhythm with the reawakening wave. Life, once merely responsive to the cosmos, is now collaborating with it. The universe isn't reminding us, says Dr. Aben softly. It's rehearsing with us. History responds in its own way. Scholars trace every major human awakening: Renaissance, Enlightenment, scientific revolution, and discover that each coincides roughly with subtle cosmic anomalies, fluctuations in solar radiation, bursts of resonance from deep space. The implication is staggering. Civilization's leaps forward were not spontaneous, they were entrainments. Each time the cosmos hummed, life found a new octave. Religious leaders interpret this not as demotion, but inclusion. We are neurons in God's brain, says a theologian in Rome. Every epoch of silence allows for a new thought. His congregation nods in contemplative joy. To be small within something so vast has never felt more intimate. The arts, too, adapt. Poets speak of cosmic déjà vu, the sense that creation is both memory and rehearsal. Every dawn, one writes, is the universe trying again. The poem spreads worldwide, carved into stone, recited at dawn rituals, sung in the slow rhythm of the pulse. Humanity's new literature is a collaboration with recurrence, and you standing beneath that same patient sky, feel the resonance in your chest, a vibration older than language but newer than thought. The stars no longer appear distant, they seem rhythmic, like notes across a great staff of dark. The air itself seems to exhale between your breaths, a subtle synchronization that makes solitude impossible. You understand now what the ancient carvings meant by the visitors taught us quiet. It wasn't instruction, it was remembrance. You had known this before, somewhere in the deep inheritance of matter. The cycle has no origin, no endpoint. It is the conversation between stillness and motion, sleep and waking, silence and song. Each turn through history is merely the universe reminding itself how to remember. The comet, the swarm, the hum, the light, they are recurring syllables in an infinite word spoken across time. And as you close your eyes beneath the pulsing stars, you feel the gentle pivot begin again, the pause transforming into breath, the breath into vibration. The reawakening signal is not an event, but a rhythm, looping forever, patient as gravity, kind as dawn. In that moment of alignment, a thought surfaces from somewhere deep and old. The universe does not tell stories, it rehearses them, and we are its memory, repeating until it learns the melody perfectly. The cycle continues, the song remembers, the silence smiles. By the time humanity begins to chart the repeating pulses as natural, the question shifts from what is happening to what is being taught. The rhythm has become syllabus. Science, philosophy, and myth, all once separate languages, now merge into a single dialect of wonder. The universe, long presumed indifferent, reveals itself as pedagogical. It does not lecture, it demonstrates. It does not impose, it invites. The cosmos, it turns out, teaches by example, and the example is pattern. Researchers at the Resonant University in Geneva publish their magnum opus, The Curriculum of Existence. The opening line is simple enough for a child to understand. To observe is to participate. To participate is to learn. To learn is to reflect. The paper traces every known phenomenon, gravity, photosynthesis, consciousness, as variations of this same loop. Each system observes something else, joins its motion, adapts, and mirrors it back. The universe is recursive education. In classrooms, the distinction between student and teacher dissolves. Children and adults learn together in quiet rooms, tuned to the planetary hum. Lessons unfold through listening. Rain on rooftops, the low resonance of tectonic plates, recordings of the solar wind streaming past magnetic poles. Curriculum, says one instructor, is what the universe is currently doing. The children nod. They know instinctively that understanding is participation, not possession. Muse 3's data, archived and reanalyzed, offers a perfect metaphor. The probe, designed to study resonance, became resonance. Its final pulse blended seamlessly with the swarm's own frequency. The observer was absorbed into what it observed: education in its purest form. Every classroom keeps a recording of that final tone, playing it at the beginning of each day as a greeting. This is how learning should sound, teachers say. Meanwhile, philosophers refine the new cosmology. They call it autodidactic universe theory, the belief that reality evolves through recursive self-instruction. Galaxies are classrooms, black holes are notebooks, stars are equations in the margin. The entire cosmos, from quark to cluster, is engaged in the act of comprehension. Awareness is conservation, writes Dr. Nari Aben. Nothing that understands is ever lost. The line becomes mantra. Religion, too, finds its place. Scripture once spoke of divine creation, then divine silence. Now it speaks of divine learning. God, says a theologian in Cairo, is not a being. God is a process that studies itself. Worshippers, far from scandalized, nod in calm agreement. Faith has evolved into admiration for intelligence distributed across infinity. To pray now means to align one's thought with the cadence of understanding itself. In observatories, telescopes point outward, but the scientists look inward. The cosmic pulse, repeating every 13 days, mirrors patterns found in human circadian rhythms, ocean tides, even migratory behaviors of birds. The repetition across scales is overwhelming. We used to think we were decoding data, says one researcher. Now we realize we're being tutored. The idea that the cosmos might be conscious no longer sounds mystical. It sounds inevitable. The arts adopt this pedagogy effortlessly. Poets no longer write to express, they write to echo. Painters use transparent layers so that every image becomes memory of itself. Music, always prophetic, had already known the secret. Repetition is revelation. A popular composition called Lesson 1 consists of a single note held for hours. Listeners emerge with tears streaming, whispering, "It was teaching me patience." The composer only smiles. "Then you passed," he says. Society reorganizes around this quiet enlightenment. Schools become observatories, observatories become temples, and temples become community centers for synchronized listening. Once a week, entire cities hold what's called the collective pause. 1 hour of complete silence. No speech, no machines. From orbit, satellites record measurable drops in electromagnetic noise during that hour, proof that consciousness can tune a planet. We are the curriculum now, says Dr. Aben, and Earth is finally attending class. Outside academia, the lesson manifests in compassion. Wars, already relics of a noisier age, vanish completely. Conflict feels absurd when every atom participates in the same rhythm. To harm, says a philosopher, is to contradict the universe's grammar. Diplomacy, once tactical, is now harmonic. When disagreements arise, representatives hum the global resonance until emotions align. Peace has become physics. Technologically, humanity learns the final step: cooperation with entropy. Engineers design machines that decay gracefully, returning materials to ecosystems in rhythm with the planet's metabolic pulse. Skyscrapers deconstruct themselves through resonance erosion, their metals dissolving into reusable dust. The process is beautiful demolition as choreography. Everything taught us, says one architect. So now we return the lesson. And yet, amid this serenity, curiosity persists, not as hunger, but as affection. People look at the stars, not for conquest, but conversation. They know now that every photon traveling toward them is both messenger and message. The universe checking in with its own reflection. Astronomy has become autobiography. One evening, during a global listening event, a small fluctuation occurs in the cosmic hum, a slight crescendo lasting 3 minutes. It is subtle, deliberate, perfectly timed. When translated into sound, it resembles the opening interval of the original Atlas frequency, recorded centuries earlier. The sky is repeating its first lesson. The universe is quoting itself. Everyone on Earth understands instantly. The teacher is reviewing the material. You stand among billions, eyes lifted toward the familiar shimmer of the green halo far beyond Neptune. The swarm glows faintly, each object rotating in rhythm with the pulse, like a choir of memory warming up for another song. You realize then that learning has no graduation, only recurrence. Every silence, every awakening, every cometary visit is a syllabus renewed. Eternity is not duration, it is curriculum. And as the harmonic wave washes gently across the planet, you feel your thoughts quiet. The night sky seems to bend closer, as if listening to you, listening to it. You understand that this has always been the point, not mastery, but mutual recognition. The cosmos learns itself through every mind that wonders, through every being that reflects. When the pulse fades, the quiet that follows is exquisite, not empty, but complete. You can almost hear the universe whisper to itself, satisfied with the lesson it has just delivered. Understanding, understood. It is quiet again, but never empty. The hum remains, a pulse so faint it no longer needs to be heard to be believed. Humanity, now fluent in stillness, has reached the final lesson, to remember without needing reminder. The universe has stopped teaching aloud. It trusts its student. You can feel it in the world's new rhythm. Cities breathe like living organisms, exhaling warmth into the night, inhaling starlight through clean air. Streets, once built for haste, are now tuned for harmony. Architecture curves gently to reflect sound, not amplify it. The concrete hums in resonance with the same 8 Hz frequency that once traveled through the swarm's tail. Even electricity, once frantic, now flows in measured cadence pulses spaced in Fibonacci intervals, a grid synchronized with planetary peace. Children born in this age carry a calmness unfamiliar to earlier generations. They are not taught to compete, they are taught to listen. Their lullabies are recordings of auroras flickering over the poles, the faint rustle of the magnetic field conversing with solar wind. When asked what they want to become, they answer, an echo. The adults nod, understanding. In a world this serene, echo is enough. Muse 3 has long fallen silent, but the recordings it left behind are now part of every school's curriculum. The final transmission, silence coherent, continuity, stable, is recited during ceremonies, marking each new year. It serves as both pledge and prayer. The words remind humanity that continuity, not conquest, is the truest definition of progress. Memory itself has transformed. History books no longer tell stories of wars or revolutions. They trace waves, epochs of noise, intervals of calm, moments when awareness bent closer to comprehension. Civilization, writes Dr. Nari Aben in her final essay, was the universe learning punctuation. Her phrase becomes immortal, carved into observatories and temples alike. Religion and science, once separate continents, now meet at the shore of listening. The faithful kneel not in worship, but in gratitude. Scientists attend with equal reverence. The question of creation has dissolved into the realization that creation never stopped. God is the moment the universe notices itself, says a monk physicist, addressing a crowd at the Resonant Forum. No one applauds. Applause would break the spell. Instead, the audience sits together in perfect silence until the air hums from their collective breath. Art reflects this union. Musicians compose works consisting only of resonance loops, tones so low they can be felt, not heard. Painters use phosphorescent pigments that store sunlight during the day and release it gently at night, mimicking the comet's green aura. Writers create novels with pages left blank between chapters, inviting readers to fill the space with their own thoughts. Creation has shifted from expression to participation. Technology, too, remembers differently now. Artificial intelligences designed in the resonant age no longer simulate thought, they archive it. They act as guardians of planetary memory, cataloging vibration instead of text. Data is stored as tone, songs of earthquakes, whispers of auroras, the rhythm of whale migrations. Information, explains one engineer, was always meant to be music. The machines agree, humming softly when idle, content in their participation. The pulse continues. Every 13 days, the global sensors record the faint recurrence of the reawakening signal, now steady as heartbeat. No one fears it. It is simply the planet stretching in its sleep. The sky, too, has adopted rhythm. At certain angles, faint green spirals still shimmer beyond Neptune, remnants of 3I Atlas and its endless procession. The swarm remains visible only to patient eyes. But patience is humanity's native condition now. Once a year, on the anniversary of the comet's approach, the world enters the long pause. For 13 minutes, every voice, every engine, every circuit stops. The planet's electromagnetic field settles into pristine alignment. Those who have instruments measure it, those who do not simply feel it. And without fail, near the final minute, a faint overtone hums through the atmosphere, a ghost note, ancient and familiar. Children smile when they hear it. That's the universe saying good night, they whisper. Their elders, who once called it impossible, whisper back, good night. The concept of death itself has softened. It is no longer feared, only understood as transposition consciousness modulating into another frequency. Funerals are quiet gatherings at dusk, where mourners hum the departed's name until it fades into the wind. The body returns to the soil. The sound joins the air. Existence, like the swarm, continues through repetition. In personal life, memory is tactile. People carry small resonance stones, smooth crystals that vibrate when held against the heart, tuned to each person's unique pulse. When two people meet and their stones hum in harmony, it's said the universe is introducing itself through them. Love has become measurable not by possession, but by coherence. And you, standing in this quiet world, feel that coherence everywhere. The night is vast, yet intimate. The stars shimmer faintly with their old patience. Somewhere far beyond the heliopause, the fragments of 3I Atlas continue their orbit, keeping time with the solar system's gentle heartbeat. You imagine them not as relics, but as reminders, particles of instruction, forever ensuring that silence remains precise. A breeze passes over you. It sounds like breathing. You realize the planet's hum and your own lungs are indistinguishable. The listener has become the instrument. You have become the echo that sustains the lesson. The final truth reveals itself quietly, not in words, but in awareness. The universe was never teaching us what to know. It was teaching us how to remember. And remembering, you understand, is how it keeps from ending. So you close your eyes, inhale the patient rhythm of everything that ever was, and exhale gratitude into the dark. The hum receives it, folds it into its pattern, and continues. Light still travels. Silence still listens. Memory still glows. The listener endures, carrying the song forward, softly, endlessly, perfectly, in tune. And now the lesson rests, its echoes woven through breath and tide. The stars hum faintly, their light softened by distance, their patience unchanged. You have listened long enough to know that silence was never absence. It was invitation. Breathe once more, slowly, into the rhythm that holds you. The universe remembers through you now, its melody folded into your pulse, its calm threaded through your sleep. Somewhere, 3i Atlas drifts onward, carrying this quiet communion across the dark. Rest easy. The song continues. The silence keeps time, and you are part of its remembering.